Welcome. Okay, guys, we are on, please. We are on. Today is Wednesday.
Maybe if I get some grace, I'll get some grace in return.
Kill their audio.
Are we having
Are you on? Are you?
I'm zoomed in, but they can't hear us because we're not connected through grassroots, just like what happened yesterday.
So
They can't hear us.
Okay.
Groundhog Day.
Sorry, can we call Aegis?
Are you gonna let John know?
Yeah, I'll call him real quick.
well, in board view, there may be a request for an addition
Sorry, I
to
missed
the
your call.
agenda, but
You know what? Can you guys hear us? You
Okay.
guys can't.
All right.
Just wait till we get everything going here,
all right.
guys.
Sounds
Please.
good. Thanks.
We can't.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking she was, no, she's here.
That cable was in the wrong one, but it looks like it's in the right
We
one.
didn't
They just
touch
switched
anything
it
since
yesterday.
Okay, let me call Amy. It's the same issue as yesterday.
We are ready to go.
Is it this?
Yeah, those are all okay.
I think so.
You guys having audio quick?
Yeah, we can hear you guys talking in the room here. So, but with you guys, yeah,
Yes.
but you guys can't hear us. So we're
Yeah.
trying to get this straightened out again. So tell if you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Should I call Amy?
Well, they can hear us in the room. We can't hear them.
The only thing
so
they did
they're
yesterday
trying
was
to get that
switches.
thing.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
Oh, I'm calling Amy.
John, I almost texted you at 5 to midnight last night. Happy birthday.
They need to stop talking. It's just. Hey guys, let's.
No, I appreciate it. It was, yeah, I'm over with my dad right now.
On your birthday, well, happy birthday anyway. I hope.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cake or pie?
Hello?
I
We're
had
having the
some
exact same
strawberry
issue as
shortcake
yesterday
last
with the
night,
audio
so,
and
yeah.
Zoom, but all the cords are still
Rich, we gotta figure this.
Yes.
I will definitely take you up on that.
I don't, all of my audio is working, it's the Zoom audio.
Yeah, it's plugged in.
So I'm getting all of the audio, but they're not.
You know, worried and tired.
Yep, and that box
We're
is
gonna
like it's
get
all
that house
working
set
really
up, get
well.
some home health care put together, that sort of thing now. Is, not terribly mobile at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's been building for a while, and he was ignoring stuff he shouldn't have been, and
John, can you hear
kind of caught
us?
up to him all at once.
No. This is what happens until we get onto grassroots. They cannot hear us. We can hear them, but we're not connected with audio with grassroots.
I can't follow
But
it
they're
all the
still
way.
having audio problems. I know what's going on with
It's the
that.
exact same issue as yesterday, but all the cords are still.
Chances are it is not our system.
I
It's
see Patty,
grassroots.
she's like, I hate this electronic stuff.
I know.
Yep.
You get to know everybody's body language, even if they say it. Ooh, I'd love the download on what mine is.
I'm glad everybody else at home is having fun.
We'll never tell.
Aw.
Okay.
No, we should all be in the room and nobody should be on Zoom.
I know, there's this picture of me in the paper, I think, when I got really upset about short-term rentals, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I know that one. I know that girl. I know how she is. I got busted. I feel like I could like send that around to my siblings and they'd be like, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That one.
Know that one.
I got busted for rolling my eyes
have
in
a-
a meeting once.
I'm gonna have a conversation with
lesson to
John.
learn. Yeah, when I was
We
on
don't have to.
P and
This is
Z,
the
there was a
exact same
person
thing
on
that
staff
happened yesterday.
there.
Why
Oh
don't
my
they know how to
gosh,
fix
she
it?
had
We
no
fixed it
poker
yesterday.
face whatsoever.
Oh, really?
Always cracked me up. Like I'd
So-
see her like body sort of pivot further and further.
Yeah, we
sort of
need to get
towards
this
the
meeting
wall.
started. It's supposed to start at noon, so maybe
To,
now
like,
we
keep
should
her
start our
facial
meeting at 11:30
expressions
just to get the
from-
technical
Yeah.
stuff over with. Okay, we'll take a
Yeah.
5-minute break.
I was like, okay, I see that there's something going on here.
Did you see that Trump pleaded the fifth?
1. Here we go. Can you guys hear us? Yay. Okay. Today is Wednesday. It's still Wednesday, August the 10th, and it is almost 12:15. Sorry for the delay in starting our meeting. First item on our agenda for today. Oh, so everyone knows I have Greg Postman, Francie Jacober in the room with me, and Commissioners Child and McNicholas Curry are at home. And we have a special invited guest, which is Bridget. Hi, Bridget. Okay. So we are going to start our meeting with additions and deletions to today's agenda.
Thanks, Patty. We do have one addition, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with the BLM. I believe Jeanette is going to be in the room, and Ellen is with us today also to discuss that.
Okay, and where do we want to add that to our agenda? But Jeanette's here, John. She's going to come up and...
Okay, great. Thanks, Patty.
I guess this is on.
If it's
Or
the
you're
red
live.
light's on, you're on.
John, we actually did republish the packet. I apologize for this. But it's on the agenda, so we don't need to add it.
I don't have
So-
the
Is it
current
the one we got
agenda.
yesterday?
Yeah.
It's new item number 4.
Okay, thank you. I don't have, sorry, Jeanette, I have my old agenda.
Not on
That's
mine.
okay.
Okay,
I did too, so thanks, Jeanette.
Okay, thank you.
okay, I'll put on a new item 4, so these will all be one ahead down below. Okay, got it. Thank you, Jeanette.
I took your seat.
So I have a change to the, do not have a change to the agenda, so I do not have to call a vote to amend today's agenda. So I'm getting a call from a member of the public who says trying to zoom in, can you see that she's here? Do we have Ellen Anderson on our, I don't see her
Yeah,
on here.
Yeah, she's good. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but we are just coming up to public comment, so give me a minute
I
to.
understand, but something just popped up and asked me to confirm that you could hear me, so I'm just responding to that.
Yes, we
So,
can,
okay,
we can hear
Great.
you.
thank you.
Okay, so the second thing on our agenda, since we do not have any additions and deletions, because Jeanette was very efficient and republished the agenda in time to get this item added, I'm going to go to public comments. This is a section of our agenda where the public is invited to speak for 3 minutes on items that are not on today's agenda. And I believe we have Ellen Anderson here to speak. So Ellen, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, there's no indication on my screen that you can hear me. Anyway, thank you. My first question is there going to be an opportunity for public comment on the agenda item regarding the ambulance district mill levy?
Not today, it is a first reading. Second reading will be on the 24th?
Okay, then I will make a very brief comment. You saw my letter that I sent to you, I hope. Absolutely support Aspen.
Wait,
Ambulance.
Ellen, you cannot comment on that item today. It's only on items that are not on today's agenda.
So what you're telling me is I can't comment when the agenda item comes up, and I can't comment now because it's an agenda item?
Yeah, a public hearing is on the 24th of this month.
So I can't say in my public comments anything about an agenda item?
That's correct. When the agenda item is noticed for public hearing, that's when you can comment on the agenda item. But as far as today, public comment is for items that are not on today's agenda.
And yet I'm not allowed to comment at the time of the agenda. Okay, I get it. Number 2 is the Airport Advisory Board. You have what's called a retreat coming up on the 26th. And to make a long story short, it has been not advertised. It really should be a regular meeting. There are going to be consultants there. It's not a retreat. I have no idea why you guys are renting a room at the Mountain Chalet for $1,500 when you could be having it in the Airport Operations Center at no cost. And the Airport Operations Center does have the opportunity for it to be live streamed and to be recorded. And I don't understand why you're paying money to have it held in a place where it cannot be live streamed or recorded. That has the appearance of not wanting public participation, and I'm troubled by that. I'm going to be out of the country, and I will make great effort because I want to observe that meeting, and so do a couple other people want to observe it who do not live here. And I really believe it should be live streamed and recorded.
Okay, and I think, Rich, you and Dan have talked about that, and it is a retreat.
Correct. Yep. There'll be notes taken. There'll be no action taken. Anything that comes out of it will be direction for the staff to bring back to a regular meeting.
But you will have consultants there. And so there will be some conversation about technical stuff. My understanding is a retreat is about things like mission, culture, goals, but not technical stuff with a consultant. So my opinion as a citizen is if you have consultants there who are talking about emissions, need and hunt, that is not a retreat. That's a regular meeting, or at best a work session.
Well, I will review your concerns with the county manager and with county attorney to make sure we're not in violation of anything, Ellen, and we'll get back to you. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to comment on items that are not on today's agenda? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the Board of Commissioners. Are there any commissioners who would like to make public comment or commissioner comment? Kelly, please.
Just two quick comments. Our community unfortunately still is at high level of transmission for COVID, and I just encourage everyone to take your personal precautions and take advantage of the free testing that is still happening out at the airport. I think it's Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. My family had to participate in that and take advantage of that this week. We're grateful we don't have any COVID in our house at the moment, but we are taking precautions out and about when we're out and about. And I also just want to wish all the families, all the teachers, good luck in starting the school year, which will start between now and our next meeting at our schools in our community. And I personally want to just extend thanks to the amazing child care providers we have in our community. My daughter Bridget is finishing up pre-K and starting kindergarten here in just about, 10 days. And we've had such amazing people in our lives who have just dedicated their careers and their care to helping raise amazing kids and helping them grow and learn and thrive. And we've been at the ELC and Growing Years and Wildwood, and it's all of our experiences have been amazing along the way. And, you know, I continue to commit to working on access and affordability for childcare for our families in our community, and to support our incredible directors and teachers and those who provide care in the home as well. Bridget, do you want to say thanks to your teachers who you've had over the last 5.5 years?
Let's say anything. Oh.
You want to say thank you? No. No? Okay. Well, I'll say thank you on behalf of myself and my family. So that's it. Thanks. Good luck to everyone starting the school year.
But I have to ask, I thought Bridget had on blue eyeshadow yesterday. I don't see that today.
Eyeshadow yesterday, red lipstick today.
Yeah.
And she cut her own bangs this morning.
Well, good luck to the kids. Moving on. Okay, any other commissioner comments? Greg?
Yeah, thank you.
Nancy?
I forwarded to the board a letter from CC4CA this morning with yet another brief summary of the Inflation Reduction Act, as it's called, and an appeal to anybody who wants to make sure this passes to contact their Congress people in the state. So I sent this to all of the BOCC via Julia, and just wanted to alert you all to it, and maybe time to get on the phone and make some calls to our Congress people. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Francie?
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize CVEPA, which is the Crystal Valley Environmental Protection Association. They're coming up on their 50th anniversary, and I wanted to thank them for all the environmental work they've done on the Crystal River Valley. And they are having a big celebration for their 50th birthday. So if you would like to support CVEPA, you can go to their website, which is cvepa.org, and find out about their event, which is in the Crystal Valley, and also learn about all the work that they have done over the last 50 years to protect that entire watershed. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, Steve, please.
I just wanted to apologize for not being there in person today. I injured my hand like 10:30. I was just rushing home to get ready to come into the meeting, and so my hand is throbbing, and I'm going to try to hang out through the whole meeting. But if I have to leave some time, at least temporarily, please forgive me.
And Steve, we hope that you are okay, and you really should go see a doctor about that, Steve, that injury. I'm going to remind you of that more than once. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the meeting. We have an ambulance guy here. We can send the ambulance out. Oh, the wrong district. Okay, so we're going to move on into our agenda. So our consent items, single reading, are the minutes of the July 27th regular meeting. Ratification of hearing officer's determination on appeals of assessor 2022 property valuations. Resolution to appoint citizen board members and ratification of the Basalt Library Board trustee. So Steve, I have a feeling you want to pull off the board member ratification
Yes, please.
or resolution? Okay. So we'll pull that one off. And we will go to the other two items on the agenda. Is there any comments or questions, or can I have a motion, please?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes July 27th and the ratification of the hearing officer's determinations on the appeal of assessors 2022 property valuations.
Thank you.
Second that.
I have a motion, I have a second. Do I have any further comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
I will note that on Zoom, we don't have the video feed to the room. So I'm not sure if that can be remedied.
We'll figure that out. Thanks, Kelly.
Sure.
We usually have a full view picture. All right, we're gonna move to the next item.
Yeah, that
Which,
sounds
I mean,
good.
Steve, did you want to address the resolution for the board appointments?
Yes, I would. And
Can we turn it
I
up a
also
little?
note that there's another addition on here which we didn't talk about. And that's a new member for the Board of Health being appointed by the town of Snowmass Village. So that's Tom Friedstein has been appointed to
was-
replace Marky Butler
What
as
was
the
in there?
alternate position. Let's see.
It's
Yeah,
in,
alternate position on the Board of Health.
it's in there that Snowmass Village agreed to appoint. It's under applicants and board members. After the senior council, there's a statement.
Hey, Ellen, how are you?
Well, it's kind of bad timing. I'm
Yeah,
listening in.
Is that Ellen?
Yeah, if
Hang on.
we could remove Ellen as a panelist right now, I think we can invite them back when, if and when there's an item for her to address.
Okay, John,
Thank you.
we're okay. I'm gonna let
And then-
Charlotte, Steve, hang on, I'm gonna let Charlotte explain this issue with Tom Friedstein.
Okay.
Okay, yes, I did put that on this appointment, because, Jordana had informed me that Town of Snowmass Village had, made that decision. So, I have added it there.
Steve, do you see it on the resolution? It's after the senior council
Yeah,
appointment?
yes, and we're not actually appointing Tom, but the town of Snowmass Village appointed him. Is that correct?
That is
So
correct. It's
maybe-
more of a ratification.
Yeah, so the way that we set up the bylaws, the municipalities get to select a representative. The formal action to appoint to the board, Board of Health still needs to happen through the Board of County Commissioners. But you've basically agreed to ratify, as Charlotte said.
Okay, so we are officially appointing him today.
Yes.
And then also, just to thank the other people, we are appointing Michelle Fox to the Aspen Animal Shelter Board, Christine McKelvey to the Senior Council, and Eric Pelander to the Basalt Library Board.
Thank you,
Thank
Steve.
those people for applying and for being willing to serve.
And I have a question as to the appointment to APCHA. Are we waiting to hear back from the city as to their decision on how to handle it?
Yes, and there is a joint City of Aspen BOCC meeting on September 20th. So I'm
Hopefully
working
we'll have
with Sarah and Shannon to see if we can have those interviews at that time.
Okay, great, because I think that this board's already kind of given direction on where we want to go, so. All right, so okay, thank you, Steve, we always like to thank people who apply and to others who applied and did not get appointed. And we still have vacancies out there, and we appreciate the time and energy people put into our voluntary boards and commissions. So I would like to see if there's a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the resolution appointing these citizen board members and ratifying the Basalt Library Board trustee.
I'll second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Do I have any further comment or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion
Aye.
passes 5-0. Thank you, Charlotte. All right, so next we have the addition of an emergency resolution approving a memorandum of understanding among the U.S. Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management, and Pickens County for cooperative development of the Big Game Habitat Movement Route and Mitigation Corridor Resource Management Plan Amendment.
Nice job.
So, Ellen, we appreciate you wanting to be part of this because the title is rather lengthy.
Thank you. Yeah, Ellen Sassano, Long Range Planner, and yeah, that's a mouthful. So, action that's requested of the board this afternoon is approval of an emergency resolution and a memorandum of understanding with the BLM to formalize and initiate a cooperating agency agreement, right? So lots of, I didn't use the acronyms. Those get pretty lengthy too. The agreement will allow the county to work with the BLM and several other local, state, and federal agencies on the development of a BLM resource management plan amendment and an environmental impact statement to address big game wildlife corridor management, specifically as it relates to oil and gas permitting. And really down the line, the hope is that the BLM standards relating to the corridor management will be consistent with other local, state, and federal agency standards around that wildlife management piece. And the reason this is an emergency resolution is because the first cooperating agency meeting is scheduled for August 23rd. And BLM understandably likes to have a signed memorandum of understanding before they launch their kickoff meetings. And so at the board briefly discussed this MOU and cooperating agency agreement on July 26th at your work session. And at that work session, you all agreed that Francie Jacober would be the elected representative from the county in this cooperating agency effort, and that I would be the staff person as the alternate representative. And as a practical matter, I will be attending meetings consistently over the next year, and Francie will be asked to attend typically when there are critical decisions that are going to be made. And so that's what we're dealing with this afternoon. We're hoping to get both that emergency resolution signed and the MOU signed so that we can move forward with this process. And happy to answer any questions. We did discuss this on the 26th, so I don't want to take a lot of your time unless you have specific questions either about the MOU or the cooperating agency process or the amendments that are being proposed.
Okay, thank you. I think Greg has a question here.
Not as much a question, but more of a comment, just to say thank you, Ellen, for agreeing to do this as our staffer and doing the heavy lifting, and then thank you, Francie, for agreeing to be there. I think this is important that we're at the table. We don't have a lot of oil and gas leasing on our BLM within the county, but we have issues regarding wildlife and large ungulate issues that I think we should have a seat at the table, and I'm glad we're going to be there as a voice, perhaps more for wildlife than for economic development of those areas. Thanks.
Kelly, and then Steve, and then Francie, if you want to say.
Great, thanks for seeing my hand. I didn't get to my raised hand quickly. I guess I'm wondering, will the scope of this extend to other commercial uses on BLM property? I guess I'm just sort of waiting for BLM to kind of say, oh, we should do more leasing for wind and solar and those kind of things. And I wonder if these regulatory changes will apply to that type of use as well.
Yeah, I can't answer that question without, I will know more once we have the initial meeting with BLM, but my understanding is that the real focus is big game wildlife corridor management across the state and really across the country, and the action is a result of an order, a federal order in 2018 to really make sure that BLM is managing big game corridors effectively and well, so that they are conserved effectively. And so I don't know if the focus is absolutely on oil and gas development alone, or if there's a broader scope, and we'll learn more as we go forward. But I know there is a real focus on making sure that those big game wildlife corridors are conserved across the country on federal lands. And
thank you. Yeah, I mean, fragmentation of landscape is really a critical issue with, relative to biodiversity and these big game populations. I would just suggest maybe connecting with Lisa Tasker and the Healthy Rivers team, because she does have this whole background on that kind of work, and maybe that is a resource internally that could help with you. So thank you. Appreciate your service as well as Francie.
Yeah, and Ellen,
thank you.
Ellen, I'm
Yes.
also going to give you an open invitation whenever you want to bring anything back to the BOCC as a whole. Just let me know, or let Francie know next year when she's doing agendas, and we'll get you a work session time. So I think Steve had a hand up too.
Yeah, my question was similar to Kelly's, because it says primarily the migration related to oil and gas leasing, but there's any myriad of migration issues here in the Roaring Fork Valley on BLM and Forest Service land related to just recreational uses that are prescribed, allowed on the federal lands, and that's affecting the migration corridors. So I think if it has a broader scope than just the oil and gas leasing, that actually would be good to have the committee take a look at some of the broader issues out there.
Okay, great. And Francie?
Yes, thank you. And I will report back, and I'm sure Francie will also let you all know when there are issues that she thinks are really critical that you need to be weighing in on. And so we'll definitely check in as these meetings progress. And yeah, when I will know more as we delve into the meetings as to the scope. But I think it is broader than just oil and gas permitting, but I think that is one of the focuses for sure.
Yeah, one of the issues off of the Crown, the BLM land on the Crown, is there's so much recreation there that now the big game herds have moved down into the hay fields of the neighboring ranches and are eating the hay crops during the summer instead of being up on the BLM land where they used to hang out. And that might be something that this committee could take a look at.
Yeah, it will be an interesting conversation for sure. If there are issues, topics you'd like us to bring to the table, please go ahead and let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you. Francie?
I'm hoping to attend the meeting from 9 to 12 on the 23rd, Ellen. We do have executive session, I think, that morning, so I'll just have to figure that out, how to go back and forth or something.
And Thank you, Francie. I know the board did request that we ask the BLM ideally not to schedule these meetings on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. And one of the things they'll be discussing at the kickoff meeting on the 23rd is days that work for most of the agencies participating. So I did submit that request, and hopefully there won't be conflicts moving forward.
Great, thank you. Okay, seeing no further hands up, this is an emergency ordinance, which means it will take effect upon passage if we choose to pass it today. So if the board would like to entertain a motion.
I'd make the motion that we approve the resolution approving a memorandum of understanding among the U.S. Department of Interior, BLM, and Pickens County for cooperative development of the Big Game Habitat Movement Route and Migration Corridor Resource Management Plan Amendment.
Great. I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, thank you. Motion passes. As soon as Julia emails it to me, I will sign it, Ellen, and get it off.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda, we're moving into individual consideration items set for confirmatory public hearing on September the 14th. One of the reasons we are trying to keep the agenda light on August the 24th, so we've been talking with people and letting people know that we're going to be moving things into September unless there is a concern by an applicant. So before us right now, the first item is a resolution of the County Commissioners approving a memorandum. Oops, we just did that one. This one is, so that confirmatory reading will be on the 14th for this emergency ordinance. Cross that one off my list. The next one is for first reading set for public hearings on August the 24th. This is a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners acting as the Aspen Ambulance District Board, submitting to the electorate at the election to be held November 8th, 2022, a ballot question for the ambulance district. John Ely, do we need to do any action to go in as the board, the ambulance district board, or are we good to go?
Just call it like you did.
Okay, I called it like I did. So we had discussed this yesterday. Staff brought forward some great information as to funding needs and numbers and where we were in 2014 when we passed the last ballot question and where we were in 1982 when we did the first mill levy. So I'm going to open it up to staff or to board for questions. And to John Ely, if you want to kick it off. I mean, John Peacock. You're on mute. Thank you.
We did have questions.
Thank you.
yesterday.
Sorry about that. So Patty, we're just gonna, for the benefit of the public, run through a shortened version of the presentation yesterday. I'm happy to back off of that and go right to the ballot language if that's the desire of the board, and answer questions. I do know we have John Ely, Ann Driggers, and Gabe Muthing in the room for questions too. So I will leave it at the discretion of the chair.
I think we should do the brief presentation first, so the
Okay.
public is aware of what we're doing here.
Absolutely, thanks. And a little bit shorter set of slides than yesterday, but just real quickly, back on July 26th, the board directed staff to develop proposed ballot language to increase the ambulance district mill levy to address additional costs associated with increased service level demands and call volumes that have led to increased operational costs, especially associated with staffing 2 ambulances versus 1. And then what we've seen in terms of lower patient reimbursement rates, particularly through insurance companies and the high volume of non-revenue producing calls for which they're just not billing codes for the ambulance district. At yesterday's work session, the board reviewed the proposed ballot language that's presented for your consideration on first reading today. Some quick background. Patty, you already covered some of this, so thank you. First, the Aspen Ambulance District is a special district. and it is authorized to assess property taxes. It doesn't have other taxing capabilities, only property or what's called ad valorem taxes, in order to ensure the provision of quality ambulance services. And it's typically to cover the gap between what the ambulance is able to collect in fees and the cost of providing the quality service. Back in 1982, that mill levy was originally set at 0.82 mils. Back in 2014, as we were considering the needs for facilities for the ambulance district, there was a change made where the mill levy, the maximum mill levy, was reduced to 0.501 mils, but that mill levy was debruced so that it no longer was subject to the revenue limitations of the taxpayer's Bill of Rights, which had caused the ambulance district to provide temporary mill levy credits that had brought it actually under that 0.501 mil. The purpose of that vote in 2014 was to provide funding to pay for the new ambulance facility that was completed in 2019. And it really is funding what's called certificates of participation, which is the financing mechanism that was used for that building, plus an additional $100,000 in operating costs associated really with anticipated costs, especially for maintenance and such, of the new larger facility that also has more complex, more sophisticated systems in it, particularly associated with efficiencies of the building. The increased operating costs and such that are subject of the question that's in front of you today weren't really anticipated in 2014. We didn't project the changes both in what insurance would be covering in terms of the overall costs and paying. We did not anticipate the volume of services and such that aren't subject to compensation. Is that we are asking taxpayers outside of the service boundary of the ambulance district to contribute and subsidize the ambulance district. So
Yeah, through the general
that is not
fund.
the intended purpose. That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
Can I ask another?
Wait, Greg has a question.
I don't want to jump in front of Francie if you had one.
She's waiting.
Mine's more about revenues for the ambulance district, so it's not really appropriate yet.
Okay, I just wanted you to drill down a little bit on, you described it to us yesterday. I think it'd be good for the public to hear it again on what's driving these cost increases, and or the revenue shortfalls, more like. Just, you had such a good description. I'd love to hear it again, if you don't mind.
Sure. I thank you for allowing me. I think in an easy way to say it, there are multiple factors really that are going into it, and we're getting hit with them all at once. As mentioned in the presentation, one of the things we're seeing is an increase in volume, right? I think we're seeing, as we mentioned in our work session, we're seeing a different crowd here in town, right? We're seeing those with a little bit more chronic health conditions. We're seeing those with an aging population and the conditions that go in with that. And we're just generally seeing more activity, I think. So our volumes are going up. That's the first piece of it. So we want to be able to support that. The other thing that we're seeing with those volumes going up, unfortunately, we're not seeing the collection rate go up with it. What we're seeing is a lowered collection rate, and that has to do a lot with healthcare finance, which is ridiculously difficult to explain in many cases. But ultimately what it is when we do an ambulance transport and charge for that service, that charge goes to an insurance company. And those insurance companies are not paying 100% of the bill. They are paying a certain piece of it, a certain percentage of it, and that's not always guaranteed, and it's not always the same per insurance company. It's a ridiculously difficult system to understand and explain. One of the things, for example, that we're seeing is that our population of those that qualify for Medicare in Pickett County is going up. As we know, our population here is aging. With that, Medicare on average pays us anywhere from 25 to 30% of the bill that we charge them. Now, that's important to note because as we could raise our bill, right? We could add in as much as we wanted. We could make it as high as we wanted. Medicare will only pay the set amount, a usual and customary amount is what they'll pay. And it's
You mean a dollar
it's low.
amount?
A dollar amount, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. So it doesn't make sense for us to raise fees. We could raise our fees all we want, we're still not gonna get it paid. So what we're seeing is those numbers going down. Now typically that has been our government payers, Medicare and Medicaid, that has had a lower percentage rate of collections for us. But now what we're seeing as well is a lot of our private payers going down as well. Our fear, of course, is that those fall to the same rate that we're seeing with our government payers. So unfortunately, volume's going up, collections going down, and the cost of equipment equipment, personnel, you name it, as everybody's feeling right now, I think with anything you buy these days, those costs continue to go up. We really do have an amazingly high level service here, and I don't want to stop that in any way. I want to make sure that we have the absolute best for our community. And not saying that we're going and buying, gold ambulances, but we really are buying the best equipment that we can to save lives. And that's really what all this goes towards, is saving lives. Help is on the way. Help is going to be there for you when you need it most, and we want to have the best for our citizens.
I want to add to that too, that one of the problems with the reimbursement rate is that you have the inability to collect that money privately directly to the consumer.
Thank
So
you.
Medicare says you cannot charge the consumer and, you cannot charge the patient for the rest of this money. It's a cut and dry fee.
Thank
So
you, Patty.
we're making up a shortfall that's caused by the insurance and federal insurance agencies to actually pay the bill.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's just how they do business.
That's,
Plus
and
we
that's
have-
beyond our control at this point.
Right, and the increase in population who are being provided health insurance through those agencies is adding to that.
That leads right to my question.
Yeah.
But also that's been happening to medical providers across the board for years.
Yes.
That, people who want to be private doctors can't really afford to be because their insurance rates are so high and they don't collect what they need to stay in business. It's pretty
That's why
extreme.
we have problems getting physicians to accept Medicare and Medicaid.
Yep.
Yes.
My question is for things like covering ESPN and all of the other, you know what I mean,
Yes.
X Games and all of the other events that you cover, is there a way that we can charge those entities more because we know they make a lot of money off of those events?
So that's a really great question. And so obviously we're a tourist community, but more than importantly, we're an event community, right? We have tons of events here in town. Our goal as an EMS agency is obviously to provide the same level of care for somebody coming in for an event as our own citizens. We want them to have that good quality care. The way that we do that currently is we charge a fee for service, depending on what service we provide. We provide either a single paramedic that hangs out at the event and provides service, or we provide up to ambulances. Some events, some of our marathons, funny enough, we'll get on bikes and be on mountain bikes as well for paramedics. So we provide the service that's necessary for those events. Now, we do charge for those services, and we charge based on the cost for us to do the business, and that includes for equipment, for people, for time for setup and planning and everything. So we do have a charge structure for that. In answer to your question, are we charging enough? Are we charging appropriately? I think that we are. And if we look at other tourist and event areas around the country, we're right where we should be charging wise. Now, could we raise those costs? 100%. We could raise them to whatever we want. I think it's important to note, though, that no matter, within reason, no matter how much we raise them, it's still not going to account enough for the shortfall that we have for the rest of the business. It does not support it in that regard, if that answers the question.
Well, it does. We heard from one constituent who's concerned that the taxpayers are paying to provide ambulance service for entities that are very wealthy entities and making a lot of money off of that event. And is there some way we can at least reduce that impact? And yet, I understand it's not going to make up the, whatever it is, 3 million or whatever it is, somewhere around 3 million, right? But, you know, I think any pressure off of the taxpayer would be appreciated, although, I mean, the way it's structured right now, the increments of change on the tax, on the ballot would not be very significant, I don't think, but.
Right, correct.
But I just wanted to bring forward her point, because I thought it was a really good point, that, you know, it costs a lot of money to protect people who are at those events, and, you know.
I completely agree. I do think that, you know, every year we look at those charges and those fees and make sure that we, you know, we have them at a level that supports, mitigates the impact completely. I think I said it in our work session, but I think the thing that's important for me is that by providing that service and by providing it with our own people at the level of service that we have, it also assures that the rest of the system stays intact. So
Right.
in other words,
That's
if
right,
there's
yeah.
no impact
Yeah.
to the community's normal service, by us providing this, it actually enhances it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the event that something big were to happen on that day, then we would just have that much extra staff around anyway. So there's benefits, and I absolutely, I know exactly what you're, you know, the email that you're referencing, and I completely agree that, you know, we really are an event community. I do think that we are appropriately charging them at this point, and that any much more that we would charge them still wouldn't fix the structural problem that we have with our budget.
Okay, great, thank you so much,
And
Dave.
Thank you.
if
Great
ambulance
question.
services are needed at those events, there's an additional charge that goes to that
Yeah,
patient.
they're still
Yes,
charged for
yes,
carrying.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not just a
yes.
one-
If we
one
transport you
cost
from the
covers it
event,
all.
you still get an
Yeah.
ambulance bill, correct?
Okay, thank you. So John Peacock, you think, we good?
Yeah, and if I could just add on to answering, I think Francie's concern just by the way property taxes work. So staff is proposing a 1.1 total mill to support the ambulance district. And so what that equates to is an increase of $110 per $100,000 in assessed value. What's important to understand about that is assessed value is calculated by taking the assessed actual value of a home and then multiplying it by a percentage that's determined by the state. And so for residential properties, that percentage next year is 6.95%. For commercial properties, it's 29%. So for a residential property, for our residents, a home that has an actual value of $1 million would pay a total of $76.45 a year, or 21 cents a day on this tax. A commercial property, and so those property owners that may be benefiting the most from the special events, for example, with a $1 million actual value would pay a total of $319,000. $319 a year. Sorry to give everyone a heart attack out there, or 87 cents a day. And so the commercial properties and such are paying on a higher rate than the residential properties. And so to the degree that some of those events or resort activities benefit those commercial interests, they are paying a higher proportion per actual value of that property tax.
Yeah, great, thanks, John, that's a good point.
Okay, next, Mr. Peacock. Greg, wait, Greg has a.
Another quick one. If I don't want to go too deep here, but I would just like to understand. We talk about comparing to other communities, and I'm just thinking when we do that, we find that Aspen's pretty expensive compared to just about everywhere.
Except for Jackson.
And I'm just wondering if it would be helpful to share some of that information with the community so we understand. We're setting ambulance rates for special events at X because this is how Summit or Vail or some other people do it. There may be some more wiggle room in there. It seems like it might not make a significant difference, but it might make a difference. So I want to encourage you to be bold with that. I think that some of these events probably can pay more, and, you know, every little bit helps, right? So I think it'd be good to be able to elaborate more on the actual numbers there, so we really get an understanding of that. And maybe Ann could contribute to that, but
Yeah, well, you know, I don't
wanna see
have
it
a
sometime.
problem getting that information, so maybe at second reading, more information as to how you set those. But even if we raise it by $200, it's not gonna make up the 2.444 million that we need.
but we don't know how much what the difference would be. We don't know.
Yeah, but that's a big span, and you'd have to charge a lot. And the thing is that, we're not sure about those events every year. They could say, okay, we're not gonna have our event this year. So we need to be having a surety as to our dedicated funding. But I think that information would be interesting to come back at second reading.
I can absolutely do that.
Yeah. Is
And,
that
and your
okay,
point
Greg?
is well taken too.
Oh, yeah,
This year is
that was-
interesting.
yeah.
We know that a couple of larger events, we don't know if they'll be back this year,
Yeah.
so.
Sure,
So-
and we have other ones coming in. World Cup's coming back, right? So
Yes,
you know,
excited.
So I think it'd be useful information just so we understand what we're really talking about. Thank you, and I understand and support it, and thank you for elaborating so
Yeah,
clearly.
and I thank Ellen for bringing that, brought it
Agreed,
to our attention.
agreed.
Okay, Stephen, then Kelly, and then John, I'll get back to you again, I promise.
Yeah, I think information that might help us in the second reading would be at least a ballpark figure on how many of the ambulance calls are for permanent residents here, how many are for visitors who are coming skiing, having skiing injuries, how many are, you know, where are the ambulance calls coming from? And even if it is someone, a tourist who is here, they are supporting our local economy by staying in a hotel or eating at restaurants or getting tax money from that. The businesses are benefiting from the business from the tourists. So the businesses then are paying the, you know, an increased, or would be paying an increased property tax to support the ambulance district. And maybe all those numbers balance out. But Gabe, if you could bring back just a rough ballpark figure of, you know, breaking down where the ambulance calls are, I think that could help us in our discussion in the second reading.
And you know, Steve, that's also a good point, except we need to also consider how many of those out-of-state patients are we serving who are staying with people that are property owners. So, I mean, are they guests of property? We don't have that information. If they were actually staying at the home of somebody who's paying the property tax. Because I would rather be paying a higher property tax. So if I had guests come to town who needed ambulance service, they was gonna be there. So, but that is another question to
Absolutely.
bring back.
We can get a rough percentage. It'll have some error rate in it, just knowing second homeowners and so on and so
Show us
forth,
so
but
we
I'll
can
do
show
my
the
best.
public.
Absolutely.
I think we need to thoroughly vet this question.
I thought you said it was 40% of, or Joe, somebody said that yesterday.
I think it may have been Joe.
No, that was something else, never
Yeah,
mind.
that was
Yeah,
jail
yeah,
population.
yeah, yeah.
We have a different population than
Yeah.
We have
Sometimes.
Slightly different. Sometimes they're the same.
Sometimes.
We have different population data on that too, so.
But
okay.
I will get that number.
Thank you. Kelly?
Along these lines, I wondered, is it possible to be able to compare mill levy, you know, the mill levy itself across districts? I recognize that, you know, it's not going to make sense to do that when the ambulance service is wrapped up in a fire district, because they're also providing other services. But you know, are there comparable districts that we might be able to look at in other kind of resort communities in Colorado?
So Kelly, the reason I'm making that exasperated face is you've got the other side of the equation, which is assessed value. And so our mill levy will look very low relative to other districts, I suspect. But that's only half the story. And so we'd have to have some, I think, comparison of both. But I've hopefully given Ann enough time to think of a brilliant solution to that.
She's chomping
She's
at the
thinking.
bit here to answer the question, so Ann, please.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think it's John, I think, hit the nail on the head with the assessed value is such a huge piece of it. So we're going to have a very low mill levy because our assessed values are relatively high. I mean, Vale, maybe Eagle County might be similar. But again, there's so many other different revenues and costs and the district size. I mean, I can certainly look at it, but I'm not sure that it will give any good information.
Because I think the Vale and Eagle Fire District.
I'm not sure that's a bad thing though, because I feel like, you know, that to me reflects a little bit of like ability to pay, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did it for the general fund, comparing ourselves to other counties. I did it a few years back for that reason and was just shocked about how low ours was in comparison. And of course, it's because our assessed value is higher than practically any other counties. So, but I'll see what I can dig up and find out.
Looks like we're gonna have to schedule this second reading for a little longer than we thought. Okay, any other questions, or can I let Mr. Peacock continue? Okay, John.
Patty, is your mic turned on?
My mic is on now, thanks. Sorry, Jeanette, I'm sorry, I forgot to turn it back on. So I'm gonna let John Peacock take over, but John, you're on mute. It's one of those weeks.
It's one of those days or weeks, so I apologize. So really that brings us to the question for the board's consideration.
Great, okay. So we have a proposed question before us. Shall the Aspen Ambulance District taxes be increased by up to $2,443,901 annually, parentheses, first full fiscal year dollar increase for collection in 2023, close parentheses, and by such amounts as are generated in future fiscal years from an additional annual ad valorem property tax mill levy imposed at a rate of 0.599 mils for the sole purpose of providing a stable funding source for Aspen Ambulance District. And shall the district be entitled to collect, retain, and spend the full revenues from such tax increase in each year as a voter-approved revenue change, notwithstanding any revenue or expenditure limitation under Article 10, Section 20 of the Colorado Constitution, or under Tabor, Section 29.1301, Colorado Revised Statute, the County Home Rule Charter, or any other law, question mark. So that is the proposed question at this time before us, and I'll make a correction on the agenda item summary. It stated that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mr. Ely, it stated the deadline to certify the ballot content for the election held on November 8th, 2022 is December 9th. I think it should be September 9th.
September.
So we have until September 9th to certify this ballot question and move it forward to the county clerk's office for inclusion on the November ballot.
Question?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm glad John Ely's here. This was the big question. As a citizen reading this, not having heard much about it, seeing it on the ballot, you really come away with absolutely no idea what the actual tax amount will be. It doesn't say anywhere that we're adding the 0.599 mils to an existing rate. I don't, you know, as a naive citizen, I would say that seems disingenuous, and I'd like to present the public with a really clear understanding of what's actually happening here. And while this is clear about what it's doing, it would be easy to miss that this is an additional annual ad valorem. So I'm just wondering if we can clarify that so it seems clearer and more trustworthy. That's the question I had. And maybe it's not in the ballot language itself, but it's the accompanying blue book or whatever. How will that be constructed and presented to the public?
The blue book is a result of questions, of comments that come in to the election official, to our clerk. The proponents and the opponents both are presented. Usually those comments are distilled down depending on the volume of comments that come in to reflect the issues that are presented. The language that you're referencing, Greg, complies with Tabor, It does so in a minimal sort of way so as not to make too cluttered of a question and present something that's confusing from the other end of the spectrum where you've got simply too much verbiage to accomplish the end. It's difficult, in fact it's impossible, to have an explanation associated with the question that would illustrate to people how it will increase their particular taxes, because there are so many different taxing districts within the county. I mean, two school districts, 3 different fire and rescue districts, whether or not you're in a metropolitan district or any other kind of special district. I mean, there's such variables. There is a technique that is employed sometimes by the organization or entity, which is the BOCC, to try to explain a little bit more the effect of the increase. And that basically tracks the explanation that John Peacock went through a little bit ago, to simply say to track a comparison to a residential property, and for every $1 million of value, your taxes will increase this much, and you can describe that as a fixed amount for the tax year of 2023. So that type of an addition is done. I don't know if I'd say frequently, but it's done, regularly around the state, depending on the type of question you're dealing with, and if you, the board, feels that it adds clarity to, how it impacts a taxpayer. You can think about adding some type of a descriptive clause that illustrates how much taxes would go up per value of residential property. Typically, it's addressing residential property as opposed to commercial, and it doesn't reflect a total tax bill, but it will reflect what this particular tax question would present.
Great, thank you. That's as clear as I've been on it yet, so thank you.
So if the board was to decide to add that at second reading, is that allowed, or do we have to have
Yes.
it continued? We can still add it?
Yep.
Okay, because it would just be a clarification of the information.
Exactly.
Okay, good question. So, that being said, I am going to, before I ask for a motion, I'm gonna look to the county attorney again. I just want clarification as to, because we have to be very careful, because we're a government putting a question on it, and our staff time ceases on first reading. If we move this ballot question forward, staff can participate in assisting with this ballot question on personal time outside of the county building. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because it's their freedom of speech, their right to do so. And pretty much the same thing for the Board of Commissioners. We have a little more leeway, but we will not be coming in and seeking information from our staff during working hours. But and I want to seek from the board right now, if we move this question forward, their assistance with me, helping me to move this question forward to the voters, hopefully in November. So, because it's a task that I'm going to need assistance with.
So do we need to provide specific direction to the staff regarding any additional description, or as you've described, like, is that something we need to do before we can speak about it again at the next, if you're going to be adding more descriptive information, is that something we want to do today before the?
You can direct staff to bring that back. That's fine. That is in your consideration of the ballot question,
They're
which
not
is
totally off the hook
in this
just yet.
resolution.
Right, okay, thank you.
That doesn't go towards the expenditure of public resources in either furtherance of adoption of the question or defeat of the question. That's kind of the overarching prohibition.
Got it, okay, so we understand the guardrails. I'm prepared to move it forward unless others have comment.
And
Kelly's got.
Kelly, her hand's been up for a while, so.
It went down and then back up.
Okay.
Thank you. Two things. I'm going to be very nitpicky here and just point out that we should be referring to this as a measure or an issue and removing the word question out of our language because they mean very specific things in the context of elections. And anything related to a Tabor measure is called a ballot issue. So the general, we've been using question as a general term, but it's actually not. A question is a policy, is a vote on a policy matter to the voters. Ballot measure is the very generic term. And I just call that out because when you see them listed on a ballot, it will say ballot issue 1A, and then it will be a Tabor question, or Tabor measure. And then you go ballot question 2A, and it is a policy measure. So this is me being very nitpicky from my elections background. And then my second thing is I need a little more clarification about how the board can operate on this. For example, how can the board submit, how can the board work together to agree on language to submit for the Tabor notice that gets printed and mailed out to voters? Like, what are we allowed to do and not allowed to do that forms a quorum or not forms a quorum? Because I think we want to do that. And so I just need a little bit more clarification on how we're allowed to operate together on campaigning on this measure.
I'm looking at the county attorney for his wise advice.
So Kelly, are you thinking of a circumstance where 3 commissioners or more would get together and canvass a neighborhood, for example, or?
I'm thinking like getting the board to agree on like what text we would submit for the Tabor notice as a proponent of this measure. Like, yeah, we can't have a meeting, can we talk about it in open discussion? Can we circulate draft language?
No, the board can engage in that type of a decision as part of its regular meeting. You can have that type of discussion on the record, and you can submit comments. I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. And just the same way as you can take a position on the ballot measure through a vote of the board to recommend to the public that it be adopted or that it be rejected or whatever. You can take a position like that as a board, and you can express it through a resolution or through a vote of the board, and that is not an offense under the election law.
Just like we did with other ballot questions in the past, like, for example, City of Aspen Open Space and Trails, we could take a position on that. So it'd be kind of a generic, okay.
Okay, so like if Patty and I draft language for the ballot issue notice, we can send it to Julia to send to the board and put it on an agenda for discussion.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Great clarification, Kelly. Thank you. And thank you. I will help you draft that language. Okay, bringing it back to the board. Any other questions or comments from staff or board members? Greg?
I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution acting as Aspen Ambulance District Board submitting to the electorate at the election to be held November 8th a ballot question for the Aspen Ambulance District.
So we're going to be referring to it now as a ballot issue?
Measure.
Ballot measure.
I think Kelly
Both of those are acceptable.
I'm amending my motion.
Okay. So I have a motion to approve a ballot measure issue. And I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes.
I have a second from Francie. Any other comments from the board? Steve, you might want to raise your hand. It's good to keep it above your heart since you, so we're going to call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank
Aye.
you, staff. Thank you.
So I
Okay.
have my cursor up there. My hand is raised all the time. But you can't see my cursor.
Okay, we are moving forward. Thank you, guys. Thank you,
very
John
much.
Peacock and John Ely.
Thanks, Ann, Gabe.
All right, we are now moving to our next item, which is a first reading set for public hearing on the 24th, as was the ambulance district ballot measure. It's a resolution of BOCC authorizing the chair to sign a grant agreement 3-08-003-064-2022 with the Federal Aviation Administration in the amount of $1,388,845 for an updated airport layout plan at the Aspen-Picken County Airport Sardi Field. And I believe we have Mr. Bartholomew with us. So Dan, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. Dan Bartholomew, Airport Director. Here seeking your acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program grant in the amount of $1,388,845. And this is for the update of the airport layout plan for the Aspen-Picken County Airport. The primary purpose of this ALP update is to be able to apply the common ground recommendations, or the relevant ones, to the ALP, making them eligible for all relevant federal funding. Some other reasons for updating this ALP at this time is it allows us to recalibrate our aircraft operational forecasts and passenger enplanement forecasts from a post-COVID basis. Also allows us to recalibrate our fleet mix, aircraft fleet mix, and to right-size those for future airport modifications. And then it also allows us to determine some highest and best use for airport property as it sits. The way that we're going to capture this data is going to be a little unique in the sense that we're going to capture aerial photography and line work to create the ALP, but we'll be capturing it in a format that we can place it into a geographic information system that should allow us to perform more of our own analytical studies out here and analytical tasks with less reliance on consultants into the future, which will be very nice. As we develop this ALP, we will be coordinating with the Airport Advisory Board as well. And then prior to or at the same time we submit this to the FAA, we will be coming back to you for your approval and signature on the ALP, followed by or in concurrence with the FAA's conditional approval and acceptance and signature of the airport layout plan as well. Because this is we expect the entire project to span approximately 12 to 18 months. And because this is an FAA grant for the fiscal year 2022, the FAA requires that this grant be signed and accepted by the airport sponsor or the county by August 31st of this year. The grant will cover 90% of all eligible costs of this project. The remaining 10% will be a combination of local share, Picken County airport funds, and Colorado Department of Transportation share as well. So with that being said, just seeking your approval for this resolution and to move forward for a subsequent second reading and public hearing on August 24th.
Do I have any questions from the board?
Sure.
Greg, please.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. I guess the question I have is, what is this obligating us to the FAA for? And how is it affecting our timeline regarding, development of the airport?
This actually is the most important step actually in moving forward with applying the common ground recommendations. You have to have those particular changes recorded and codified on an airport layout plan that's been approved by the FAA before you can accept federal funding or even apply for federal funding for those items. So this is something we're required to do if we want federal funding to implement the common ground recommendations.
Okay, and then we've had predictions about how long all of this is going to take. Does this change that timeline?
It shouldn't. If anything, I guess it could potentially. It shouldn't affect as far as making the adjustments to the say modification of standards or moving to a full Group 3 airport. One way or the other, the FAA is going to push us in one direction or another. So it really doesn't affect the timeline on that. It just gets us prepared to do so. And if we didn't have this on an ALP, the FAA could come back and say, you will make these changes, but because it's not on an ALP, you airport sponsor will pay for them instead of the FAA.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions from the board? I only have a comment, and Dan, keep those grants coming.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
We appreciate that.
I guess my question would be, why wouldn't we approve this?
That's what we usually say when Dan comes forward. So you want us to say no? So we have this, so this is a first reading, set for public hearing on the 14th, on the 24th of August. I think we can keep it on that August agenda, because I think it should be an easy one for us to move forward. So if there's no further questions or comments, I would love to have a motion from the board.
I can make that motion.
And I'll second.
Authorizing the chair to sign a grant agreement number 308-000-3064-2022 with the FAA in the amount of $1,388,845 for an updated airport layout plan at Aspen Pitkin County Airport, Sardi Field.
Well, you got through that title much quicker than I did. So I have a motion from Greg and a second from Francie. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
We will see you soon. All right, next item on our agenda is a individual consideration items, public hearing, one reading, application for a transfer of the Redstone Castle liquor license from Redstone Castle LLC to RC Ownership LLC. This is continued from the July 27th, and thank you, gentlemen, for being patient and waiting for us. So we'll let Jeanette do a little presentation, and then if you want to add, and we'll bring it to the board for questions. Thank you. Nice to meet you. And if you want to just introduce your guests.
Thank you, Patty. Yes, joining me at the table here is Stephanie DeBates, who is the managing partner for RC Ownership, and John Belkin. He's not at the table, but he's close. And he's the counsel for RC Ownership LLC, and he is from Garfield and Hackney. And yes, thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
This is an application for a transfer of a liquor license from the Redstone Castle Incorporated to RC Ownership, get all my ducks in a row here. On January 23rd, I think the board will remember this, 2019, the Board of County Commissioners approved a liquor license for the Redstone Castle that we all know where it's located, up the Crystal. And this property was recently sold to RC Ownership, who is the applicant on this application. RC Ownership LLC is a Colorado limited company, and its president is Stephanie D. Bates. I'm sorry, I don't mean to mess with your name. Who also owns an approximate 10.1 interest in RC Ownership LLC, and we need to disclose this. In addition, Mr. DeBates has an approximate 13% interest in the St. Regis Aspen that holds the license number reflected in the AIS. And as I put in my memo to you all, due to personal information being contained in the application, there's a lot more components to the application, but they're in good, I can tell you that the applicant is in good standing and that we're ready, upon your approval, to send it to the state for their review. So that's pretty much all I have as a presentation. And if you have any questions, these gentlemen are here to answer.
Let me see if the board has any. Does the board have any questions or comments for Jeanette?
Oh, I'm just, if I could, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming in, and it's exciting. Just wanted to understand, how do you foresee the operation or the purpose of the Redstone Castle changing with this acquisition? Is it going to be a satellite of the St. Regis, for instance, or what's going on up there?
No, it's not a satellite. We're going to keep our feet on the ground. We believe, and I've acquired the right to a wellness brand, which is currently in operation in Asia. As you may know, my partners, I've been living for 22 years in Asia prior to moving to the United States. I do believe that the wellness, mind, body, and soul tourism is the future. I think we need all to learn what is our place in the universe and how do we disconnect from all those electronics. And I think that Pitkin County should be the center of this trend. And I think it brings quality tourism. And it's also very non-disturbance for the local community, because unlike transient tourism, which is in and out, I come on Monday, I arrive on Tuesday. Here, you will come for retreat or boot camp, and everybody comes more or less on the same day and leave on the same day. And once they are on property, they go to their program of detox or sleep management, weight management, and very little disturbance to the operation. So as you may know, when we purchased the property, there was a master plan that had been approved by the county. We're going to have to do some modification and resubmit that master plan. In the meantime, we will start creating programming, fun programming around wellness, and that's going to be based on nutrition, movement, sleep management, weight management, and try to keep a social element to it, because I believe that we all want to be better humans and live longer or live better, but we don't want a boring life either. So we still enjoy a glass of wine at the end of the day, and therefore I do need the liquor license.
Sounds great.
So it's a challenge to take over that property, as you may know, because there's been 12 owners prior to us, and everyone has been facing, the challenge, and I always say to my investor, if you run a property which is less than 50 rooms, it's not a hotel, it's a crime of passion. But I do believe that if you find the right DNA for a property like the Redstone Castle, you can actually find the stability that's going to preserve the property over, hopefully, the next 50 or 100 years. So super exciting to be involved, and hopefully we can work together with the community and make it a successful venture.
I was not expecting that answer.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you. Length of stay, is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a sliding scale?
No, not a month. I think that the focus is probably to do between 4 nights and 7 nights. I think that gives the time for the people to embrace the beauty of the place, to get their bearings. If it's out-of-state tourism, they need to adapt to the altitude. And I think that you get to know people, and I believe strongly in the social element of hospitality. And I think after 4 or 7 days, hopefully, you leave a little bit lighter, happier, and with a bunch of new friends.
So it's kind of like a retreat or sanitarium sort of. The sanitarium is the wrong word. I'm trying to think, what do you go on
more and more to think that's what we should
holiday
retreat.
in Europe? What do
Yeah,
they
that's
call it?
right. The Earth Farm. In fact, I had this presentation to a couple of other people yesterday. The spa word is being replaced right now by wellness. And the difference between spa and wellness is spa, you lay on the massage table and you get pampered. Wellness, you do have education. You understand why you do things, why you eat this or you don't eat this. What does it do to you? How do you cohabit with the environment? So hopefully that's a trend. I believe, even the Aspen Institute, when it was first creating, was to actually promote the balance of mind, body, and soul. So I think Aspen and Pitkin County should be the center of this trend, and hopefully the Redstone Castle will be the landmark.
If I could ask one
Yeah,
final
go ahead.
question here is, you mentioned the 12 owners, some colorful characters have owned this place. The original owner was Osgood, of course, who built it and fueled it with coal from Coal Basin, which was his enterprise. We have we've declared a climate crisis in the county now, and we're very concerned about, carbon footprints, energy efficiency, electrification, things like that. And as the owner of a 140-year-old property, or whatever it is now, what is it, 120? 120. You've got an energy pig there, quite frankly, and it'll be interesting to see, I'm hoping that part of your focus will be on trying to create something modern in the way of healthy environment through electrification or energy efficiency measures. And I'm optimistic you'll be able to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big focus. We also, I mean, I don't want to jump the gun because we're working with our land planners and other people to come up with a presentation of what we think the final product should look like, but we're looking at social farming. We're working, I'm a big supporter of ACES, and I love what they do at Rock Bottom Ranch, which are actually a negative carbon footprint. So I think we want to learn from the expert, and obviously we want to be sustainable because wellness and sustainability somehow are connected. So as far as and we welcome any suggestion. You know, you need to remember one thing. It is a 120-year-old piece of property, so
Yeah,
I wish I could come with my magic wand, but
I'd recommend reaching out to CORE right off the bat. You know, Community Office for Resource Efficiency. They have people that are in place to help with things like that. So that'd be a good start. But thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That was very informative.
I'm also going to suggest the SEVEPA, the Crystal River Environmental
Protection Agency, yeah, or association.
Yeah,
agency.
they're having a 50-year anniversary event just down the road at Sunfire Ranch coming up on the 21st.
21st.
Yeah, and they're one of your neighbors, and they do a great sustainable farming effort there, farm to table. So if you'd like more information, maybe Jeanette can send it. We'll get the information. Jeanette can email it on to you. Their event's coming up. Be a great way to meet your neighbors.
Absolutely.
And see what's happening on the environmental side of the Crystal River Valley.
would love to.
Okay, we'll see. So Jeanette, can you do that? Send that on, and I'll
Sure.
send you them. Okay, I have Steve, and then Kelly, and then Francie.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you. Gosh, I'm sorry I can't see you all in the room, but I want to congratulate you on your opportunity here to steward this really special property into its next chapter. I've enjoyed hearing what your vision is. I really think what we have here has been transforming from kind of a party reputation into more of a wellness location, you know, known internationally for that. And I appreciate that you share that vision. I'm wondering how you know, this is a liquor license conversation. So I'd like to just hear some more thoughts about the reconciliation of, you know, serving liquor with what your goals here are for the property.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I've been blessed with the ownership here in town of a hotel property that has several venues inside. I do not believe that in the entire time of ownership I had a single violation. So we believe in training our staff, we believe in respecting the law. And as I mentioned, wellness doesn't need to be opposed as having a good time. And a good bottle of wine is part of the equation. So it's going to be, we also will continue the program of offering the place for event. We have special grants in terms of number of events that have been granted by the county. And therefore, when we do have a buyout or a wedding, we need to be able to serve liquor as well. So to be fully honest with you, on the wellness program, alcohol consumption will be extremely minimum, but it will be offered. And for weddings or other event, I guess it's up to the person that wish to celebrate their wedding there. But my point being, over the last 12 years, no single violation. I'm now a full-time resident in Aspen, so we want to do things by the book. I hope that answers your question.
It does, yes, and I enjoy my good glasses of wine here and there too, so I can understand that balance. Thank you.
So I just want to add on to that, there's no conflict, John, with the two ownerships of liquor licenses between the St. Regis and the Castle. Okay, just want to make sure we got that clear. I think we have Francie. Steve, I don't know if you still wanted to comment, but I'm going to let Francie go here.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
It's not going to just be wine, right? I mean, I like whiskey. And I live over there.
You know, if you listen to your nutritionist, you should actually be drinking tequila.
Yes, well, that's
better
what
for
all
you.
my sons drink. They won't touch anything except for tequila, so.
It's much
And she
better
gets
for
some
you.
good
I'm
tequila.
not there, though. I'm still stuck on whiskey, but, I wanted to ask you how you feel your reception has gone with the town of Redstone.
Well, I think that so far we're still in the honeymoon period. I believe a lot of people have outreach, a lot of questions have been asked. And of course, you always have, you know, at first, I was put on notice by the previous owner and said, be careful, the community is difficult and you're going to step into, I mean, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but so far we haven't seen it. Some people wonder what it's going to be looking like and what does it mean for them. Obviously, we are fully conscious that the town of Redstone, I believe, has 92 citizens, people living there. And a lot of their economic well-being depend on the activities of the historic component, and that include the castle. What I've seen in other communities in which we have been developing projects like this one is that the community find a new footing, and they finally, not finally, but they learn to embrace the DNA of the operation. I can tell you one thing that a lot of people told me and say, oh, you should do tours and you should not charge for it. I mean, I cannot buy a property, run it, and offer free tour as a museum. That would be something that the state would do, but not us. So we're listening to a lot of the local community. I spent quite a bit of time there, back and forth, but I haven't seen anything but excitement, I would say, to a certain degree, and hope. I think that the community wants, they don't want to see this property changing hands every 3 years.
Yeah.
They would like it to be in good custody for the next 50 years and develop the community. This is why I'm talking about introducing the concept of rebuilding the greenhouse of the Redstone Castle and producing nutrition for the operation, but giving the access for free to the community. I want to integrate a little bit like Osgood did when he first built the castle, right? The whole town of Redstone was his social capitalism experiment. And I think that we should look at see how we can revive this concept.
Do you live at the castle?
No.
Does anybody live there now?
Yes.
So you have like a caretaker or manager or
We
something?
have caretaker. We're actually going to put more and more people as we're going to start the first retreat probably end of September. And then it's going to be a weekly iteration. But there are people on site right now.
And do you have capacity to house some of the people that'll be working there to host your events and staff your events?
Yes, totally.
So that
And
you
you
won't
have
be-
you have the Redstone Inn next to it.
Right. But I mean, to have them live there so that your employees won't be necessarily driving up and down the Crystal Valley.
Well, that's a discussion we will have as part of the master plan,
Oh, great.
but obviously we're fully aware that there are requirements on full-time employee housing. We have 154 acres, so hopefully we can find a solution.
Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing that.
Okay.
And I would love to come see the castle if
If
you
you
make that happen.
Yeah, if the people, ladies and gentlemen present here, wants to have a private tour, let's decide on a date. And my wife loves to give tours together with the local, so it would be my pleasure
That
to
would be
host
great.
you.
We're gonna be heading up that way soon. When we go see the turnabout site visit.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Yeah, that would be fun.
Question, just a comment. You're familiar with the greenhouse, the former greenhouse, which was relocated to Glenwood. Is there any way you can get that back? Would you?
The question is, I don't know, but the other point is you brought up efficiency and sustainability. I am 100% convinced that there's a better way to build a greenhouse than to buy back one that was built 100 years ago. I can make it look like it did 100 years ago, but make it efficient.
You make a very good point.
I didn't know that one came off of the castle property. The one that's.
Yeah,
over-
it's a beautiful in cross shape. It's
Have
amazing.
you seen the one? It's on Highway 6 in Glenwood?
Canard New
Yeah,
Grove.
it's only part of it, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, just wondering if you knew about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in a very old greenhouse, but not 100 years old. Okay, so moving along here, Steve, did you have any comments before we?
No, my questions have all been answered, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this business operates. So,
Great.
wish you very much good fortune in this new enterprise. I'm intrigued by it, and I think it probably will be very popular.
Great, thank you. And I did have one last question. Jeanette, the map you enclosed, is that the same map as our previous liquor license approval? Okay.
Yes, this is a transfer.
Great, thank you. All right, so this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this item on our agenda? Are there any in the room wishing to comment? Are there any members of the public online wishing to comment? If so, please raise your hand.
Oh, Bridget.
Oh, Bridget, hi. You want to talk to us, Bridget?
No, we're good, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'm going to close the public hearing on this. Bring it back to the board. For a motion, Greg, you've been so good at motions.
I'll make a motion that we accept the transfer of the Redstone Castle liquor license from Redstone Castle LLC to RC Ownership LLC.
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further comment from the board?
Don't
Seeing
stifle
none?
Bridget, she
Seeing
wants to
Bridget.
speak.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. We
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
Thanks for
Yeah,
coming,
best of
thanks for
luck.
the explanation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
And please send me the date so we can actually be good to our word on
Okay.
hosting a visit
I
for
will
the
do that.
commissioner.
And is your accent more French than Asian?
Well, I give you 3 try. If you have to guess the country I'm from.
I would have said France, but
No.
Switzerland.
Nope. Netherlands. No. It's Belgium.
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 we were kind of all close.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is an application for a special liquor license permit submitted by the Crystal Valley Environmental Protection Association for an event to be held at Sunfire Ranch located at 633 Highway 133. Lots of 333s in there, Carbondale, Colorado. And Jeanette?
Thank you, Patty. This event has been mentioned a couple of times today by Commissioner Jacober in the open discussion, and then you kind of gave an overview of it for the gentleman here. It's an application submitted by the Crystal Valley Environmental Protection Association for a special event liquor license, and I believe Susie Meredith Orr is with us virtually.
I didn't.
There she is, yeah.
Okay.
So, the Crystal Valley Environmental Protection Association has applied for a special event permit to provide malt liquor at an event to be held on August 21st, 2022, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And it is at the Sunfire Ranch. And Susie did send me a letter that I handed out to you all earlier on the meeting, a permission letter from Jason Sewell to use the property. And she also submitted an alcohol mitigation plan, which I handed out to all of you. Those 2 items just came in after packet preparation. So, as I typically do, and I mentioned to Susie that I would turn the meeting over, the hearing over to her to talk a little bit more about the event and the mission of the association. And I think she's prepared to do that, so I'll turn it over to Susie.
Hi, Susie, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Patty. My name is Susie Meredith Orr. I'm one of 2 vice presidents for the Crystal Valley Environmental Protection Association. And Francie, I want to thank you for your recognition of our anniversary at the top of this meeting, and let you all know that we would be very happy to welcome the new owners of the castle to our celebration on the 21st. As you may know, SAVEPA is an all-volunteer grassroots nonprofit organization that's dedicated to protecting and preserving the natural environment and scenic resources of the Crystal Valley. Our mission statement describes our commitment to the enjoyment of wilderness, the promotion of greater knowledge of the environment of the valley, and encouragement of human conduct that will sustain those resources. SVEPA began in 1972, 50 years ago, when 3 people got together around a kitchen table to discuss their concerns about a ski area that was proposed for Marble. Some estimates say that that would have meant a town of 25,000. Some believe it might have been more, but they believe that that development was inappropriate for the Upper Crystal Valley. They were soon joined by other people who were concerned, and that's how SVEPA was formed. That initial fight was successful when they prevented the Forest Service from issuing the needed permits, and they soon learned that an environmental watchdog was still needed for the Crystal Valley. They went on to fight over a number of decades the West Divide project that would have dammed the Crystal and sent its waters to Garfield County to benefit the oil shale industry. That was successfully defeated with the help of Pitkin County. We also fought for meaningful restoration of Coal Basin after Mid-Continent Resources went bankrupt and left an inadequate restoration bond. We were one of the original fighters for the wild and scenic efforts for the Crystal, and we continue to participate in that effort now. More recently, we have participated in the 3-year process with the Lead King Loop stakeholders group to provide the environmental perspective on unmitigated OHV traffic in the Upper Crystal. And we have managed the conservation of a 55-acre wetland area near Marble as well. We had 2 board members who also discovered and reported the unpermitted rerouting of Yule Creek at Colorado Stone Quarries. So we feel like we have a lot to commemorate. So we are having a once in every 50 years event, and really hope that you all will consider attending.
Okay, comments, questions from the board?
I will be there.
I think we need to notice this event, if we have it, because I think we might have the possibility of more than 2 commissioners there. I happen to be longtime friends of Casey Piscura and his significant other, Kirsty. So it's an amazing opportunity for people to see the amazing conservation issues that went on at Sunfire Ranch, along with the amazing sustainable agriculture that's going on there. So also to celebrate 50 years, I did not know that full history of SVEPA, so I'm amazed and not surprised though. So I'm going to make every effort to also be there. So I'm going to bring it to the board. Steve?
Yeah, a little more historical background. The ski area at Marble was on a Mount Daly, and that caused no end to confusion about the Haystack ski area, which is right next to another Mount Daly, the one that people see from Snowmass Village. And my dad was very active, of course, in fighting against the Haystack ski area. And then at some point he started supporting the SVEPA in their efforts in the Crystal Valley. And I don't know if his efforts started regarding the ski area or, you know, some other issue there, but yeah, SVEPA's actually been part of my kind of family upbringing here on Capitol Creek Valley. And also I do plan on attending. I think this is, you know, it's a milestone celebration for SVEPA on their 50th anniversary, and it's a good time to celebrate and participate.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
So definitely we need to notice it.
We will.
All right, any other comments from the board? Yeah, please.
Susie, remind us, you know, how are things going with the OHV situation up in there, and has Savepa been able to really get a foothold in bringing a sense of community back up there without the traffic?
Well, as I said, it's been a long process. We've participated since it began 3 years ago, and there are certainly quality of life issues for people who live in the area, but also the environmental concerns are real. And we recently went through a facilitated project with the Center for Public Lands, Gunnison County, and the Forest Service. And we have drafted a list of recommendations, and we'll be voting on those soon, which will then be presented to the convening organizations. So a lot of educational concerns, noise ordinance concerns, and other ways that we feel like we can impact this issue.
Good luck with that, and I'll help. I'll help however I can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Oh, Kelly, and then I'll open the public hearing.
Thanks. Hi, Susie. I look forward to seeing you in person at the party as well. I'm very excited about that. I wonder, was Savepa following the Carbondale to Crested Butte Trail efforts as well? Where we have that one piece underway and then sort of the larger project hanging out for future consideration.
Yes, we've been following that for years. We took a vote on a position, I believe last summer, and the vote was 6-1 in favor of the trail section from Redstone to McClure.
Good to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open this to the public. This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public here in the room wishing to comment on this item? Or any members online? We have one person online. If you would like to comment on the Savepa liquor license, please raise your hand. *9, I believe. Okay. We have a little lag time, so we used to. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. For a motion. Steve, please.
Well, I do have one more question. I noticed on the map that of Sunfire Ranch that they are having your event at what they are calling Camp Foster Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember how far away from 133 is that quite a ways up the hill where there's they have a flat area, or is it closer to their agricultural operation there?
So that camp is actually a meadow that's about a half a mile in from the highway. It's very easy to reach. It's not the upper meadow, and it actually is positioned along the banks of Thompson Creek. It's a really beautiful spot, and the original cabin from the original Sewell settler is located there.
Okay, and that's what I kind of remember, that there was a cabin somewhere up farther up the road there. Okay, so I think I'm thinking of the same spot where you're gonna hold the event.
It's really stunning, and we're so grateful to the Sewells for letting us hold this there.
Great.
So is there sufficient parking at that point, or are you gonna have people park down below and shuttle up, or how is that gonna work?
No, there is a large area adjacent to the meadow that the Sewells have reserved for parking. And we believe we can get 75 cars in that spot. If that's not sufficient, there's another lot further east that would require a little bit of walking to get to the meadow. But we believe there's more than sufficient parking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So I'd be glad to make a motion,
That would be great.
Patty. I'll make a motion to approve the application for the special event liquor permit submitted by Crystal Valley Environmental Protection Association for their event to be held at Sunfire Ranch.
I'll second that, and it's August 21st is the date of the event.
That's correct. And we will make sure, well, we'll do our best to get the new Redstone owners there, just to introduce them to the community and see how they can help work with Savepa. Okay, I have a motion. I have a second. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Susie. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much for your support.
It looks like you'll see most, if not all of us there, which would be
That's
great.
terrific. Sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is we had, but not on the back of this one, is a individual consideration on public hearing, second reading, ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners approving and accepting a deed of conservation easement for the 5R Ranch. Paul, hi, nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. Yeah, my name is Paul Holsinger. I'm the Agriculture and Conservation Easement Manager for Pickens County Open Space. I'll also be at the SVEPA 50th celebration, so I'll see you there. There's no changes from first reading on this item, but since Francie and Greg weren't here, I'm going to go through just because I think it's a really important process and project that I think the citizens of the county should listen to. And I'm going to share my screen here so you all can get a good view of what this property looks like on the landscape. So we have the property right here outlined in yellow, 79 acres right along Capitol Creek and Capitol Creek Road. It's right next to Capitol Creek Ranch, which was the start of conservation over in this valley back in 2003 with Steve's family. That project brought forward the Harveys next door here. Together, these two properties create 3,000 acres of conserved land right on the border of the Forest Service and the Maroon Creek Snowmass, the Snowmass Wilderness, Maroon Bells Wilderness. And AVLT has done some work with Lost Marbles Ranch, John McBride, and the Weeben Ranch here with the use of tax credits on those two properties, which is also how this property, this 79 acres, came to us and how we're getting this done. Colorado was an early adopter of transferable tax credits. So if a landowner in Colorado granted a conservation easement on their property, they could donate that value, and if they didn't have the need for that tax donation, they could transfer it to somebody else. There were limits on that donation for a long time. Up until last year, they bumped it up to $5 million, which was a huge jump from when it first started, which I believe was $350,000. But now with the cost of land in Colorado, it actually opens the door for a lot more people to donate conservation easements and transfer those tax credits to somebody else and get paid that way. And this is exactly what we're doing with Tom and Rose Rupert, who are on the Zoom. Dale Will, our acquisition director in special projects, he went out there and met with Tom early on when the family had listed their property, told him about this process and ability that the county could help with the transaction costs if they would work with us to donate this conservation easement. And Tom and Rose and the family agreed to that, took it off the market, I think the next day. And we started that process, getting an appraisal, getting the easement drafted, and finally got to the point where we are ready to accept this conservation easement. It protects the entire property except for a 7-acre building envelope that's surrounding the existing structures. The family has voluntarily limited the square footage of the residential development to 4,000 square feet, which they are entitled to more. And I'm going to switch to a closer view here for you. Here's where the structures are. Like I said, Little Elk Creek. This is actually Little Elk Creek, not Capitol Creek. Capitol Creek is over here on Capitol Creek Ranch. But Little Elk Creek runs through it. There's a very intact riparian area along it. Capitol Creek Road travels through it. In addition to the conservation of the entire property, Tom and Rose and the family are donating a 20-foot recreation easement along the east side of the road here for a future trail at some point. As you know, that road gets traveled quite a bit. The equestrians park just off screen here. This is a BLM piece. It's where Hay Park Trail leaves Capitol Creek Road. But a lot of equestrians use this road, and at some point we may want to create a separated trail. So they've voluntarily offered that, and we were happy to work that into the deal. That's really all I have to say. I mean, it's been a pleasure working with Tom and Rose and the family, and this option is great for the state of Colorado, and especially for Pickens County with this increase that happened last year by Governor Polis and the state legislature. I'll answer any questions you all have.
Francie.
So is this a transferable tax credit then put on the open market, or is it like a TDR? It's separate from any kind of county anything. It just goes on the open market.
Yeah, generally it's brokered. So there's tax credit brokers who will help connect the landowner who has donated the value of their conservation easement. They'll sell it to somebody with a tax liability that can actually use that to offset their taxes.
And what is the value of the conservation easement?
The value of the conservation easement is, I think, a little over $1.5 million.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So this board has, Kelly, please.
Yeah, I think I just offer a little more information. I'm pretty sure that there's a limit to the amount of tax credits that can be applied in a given year, Francie. So, it does limit the amount of tax revenue that can come to the state, but it's not just an open amount.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There's a state tax credit cap, which is $45 million. There's an individual cap of $5 million.
So it's a little bit competitive time-wise.
It's
kind of like what we were talking about at the open space and trails thing.
It's competitive now. Mm-hmm. We last year was the first year the tax credit cap for the state was hit, and they expect that cap to be hit pretty soon this year.
So will their intent be then to apply next year or to try and get it in this year?
We're going to try our best to get this done this year so that I don't have to wait.
But then if you can't, then you can next year.
Correct.
Enter the lottery, or is it a lottery or is it time chronological?
It just goes to the next year. You just get in line for the next year if you've
right.
hit that cap.
And is that awarded by who comes in first, or is it a lottery?
It's first come, first serve.
Okay.
I also serve on the Colorado Conservation Easement Oversight Commission for the state, so I know about that.
So
we do. I didn't know that, Paul.
Yeah.
What did you just say?
Serving as a commissioner for the Conservation Easement Oversight Commission. It's my second term.
It's a good connection to have.
Oh.
Thanks. Thank you for your service.
Yeah. Do you get to go out of town for those meetings?
Well, not as late, but before I would go to Denver and do a big, tall building.
Yeah. That's your favorite thing, to go down to Denver?
No.
Only because they go to the aquarium and the zoo and.
Yeah, Pickens County is well represented. Me and Bill Fales are actually on the commission.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, we do have Mr. Rupert here online. Tom, it's nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Would you like to say a few words?
No, I'm just very grateful we have things like this that help us preserve this land. And we would like nothing better than to preserve it. We were going to sell it, like Paul was talking about, and we don't need to sell it if we do this. And I've been involved in conservation for a long time, and the Gar Pit conservation. But anyway, I worked there for a few years with them on selling their trees from the Forest Service all around Pickens County. And I've been here for about 55 years. I live next door to Steve for probably 45 years. And it's just a beautiful place, and I'd like to see it stay that way. We have lots of deer, elk, numerous different birds, probably a couple hundred hummingbirds at the right time of year there.
Wow.
It's just it's a very, very neat place. And we're happy to preserve it.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Mr. Rupert, you and Rose. We really appreciate it. From what we can see from the pasture meadow and the trees and the location, the riparian, it is truly a beautiful property. And I think I can speak for the whole board saying we so truly appreciate your efforts to conserve this land. It's awesome, and so we thank you. I'm going to go to Steve and then to Kelly.
Well, Kelly had her hand up first, but I'll go ahead. I think it's important to note that everybody going up the Capitol Creek Road, going to Capitol Lake, to Capitol Peak, to Williams Lake, to the Hell Roaring Trail, all go right through the middle of this property because the road cuts right through the middle of it alongside Little Elk Creek. And what the Ruperts are doing will just keep it looking the way it is now, just forever, perhaps with the addition of, the trail along the east side, because there is sometimes in the summer just a huge amount of automobile traffic going up and down there. It's a very popular place for people to go. And that trail might come in really handy someday just to make it safer for people walking or people on horseback to be separated from the vehicle traffic. But I think this is a very good addition to the conservation of land in the Capitol Creek Valley, and it's a good addition. And it's right adjacent to our Capitol Creek Ranch conservation easement. So it makes that orange area continually growing a little bit bigger, It means that the more and more of the Capitol Creek Valley is going to stay the same as it is now for a really long time. And I really appreciate Tom and Rose coming forward and wanting to do this with their property. And I'm really glad that they're able to do this instead of selling it and not having it be in their family anymore.
Right, thank you, Steve. It gives me reason, Paul, I'm going to throw this out, so maybe we can think about it for next year. Maybe, I don't know if Open Space has ever done this, but maybe we should have a celebration of all those that have joined in their efforts to conserve land in Pitkin County and bring all those people together so they can share their stories and we can thank them all.
I think it's a great idea.
So if you can pass it on to your boss.
Kind of like the land dance.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah, but I think we need to do one from the Pitkin County level.
I'll tell Gary that
Yeah.
we got to do it.
Yeah, and we won't have John Peacock plan it, so.
Ha.
Kelly and I will plan it, right, Kelly? Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay, Kelly, please.
Yeah, I was inspired after our first reading on this, so I took my kids up and we hiked up to Hardscrabble Lake, and they did great. And you have a ton of fish in that lake up there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Our
Yeah.
water rights come out of that lake for the range.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much. It really is. I couldn't conceive of a better place for conservation, and we're so grateful for your generosity.
Well, thank you.
Steve, go ahead.
Well, there are lots of fish there, and I never ever could catch one. Those great big fish. And you would put whatever you put out there in the water, they would come and they'd bump it with their nose, but they never would bite on it because those fish are really well fed by the freshwater shrimp that live up there, and they don't need anything else to eat. And I don't know if anybody ever had very much success at catching trout out of Hardscrabble.
Okay, so I'm going to.
I just want to make it quick.
Yeah, but hang on, okay, you want to go ahead? Go ahead, Greg.
Just wanted to say thank you to Tom and Rose. This is, it's so heartwarming, it's gratifying to have longtime locals who really do appreciate the land and are able to stay on it in the way you've constructed to do with this, without having to sell it for development. And I just want to say the spirit in which you're doing this is to be admired and celebrated. And I'm hoping others in the community who have assets like this would consider it. Because really this is what conservation is about and what it takes. And just want to say I really appreciate it. You're not coming to us to shake us down for anything. I appreciate that. I don't see a lot of TDRs tied to it. And I can just say I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not
Thank
sure,
you.
did I open the public hearing?
I don't.
This is a public hearing. If I opened it already, I'm gonna open it again, just to make sure. Are there any members of the public in the room wishing to speak on this item on the agenda? Seeing none. Anybody online? We have one member of the public online. If you would like to speak, please *9 to raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll bring it back, and I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Oh, wait, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have one more comment. I've failed to mention that AVLT, Aspen Valley Land Trust, did just preserve this little 30-acre piece using tax credits as well. I believe they just closed that maybe within the last 2 weeks. So
Oh, cool.
we've got some good conservation happening in this.
And what's that little square just below Tom's place to the,
This one here?
yeah,
Tom could probably tell you who that is. I believe it was Barbara Reese, but now it is Chris.
Tom, was that Barbara Reese's property just,
Yes, that was Barbara's, and now Chris Rowe has it?
Chris Brown.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's a great guy and a real conservationist. He just loves it up there.
He was the one who bought this piece as well and conserved it. But there's conservation value in all these parcels, so if anybody is listening,
you come to us and we'll
give
help
us
you.
a call.
Yeah.
can we see the monastery property on this map?
Yeah, the monastery is all this, and this is
Okay.
part of theirs as well. And then
Yeah,
this is
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you, Paul.
Steve's neighbor as well. Another
Okay,
separate
we're
parcel.
working on it up there, that's for sure. All right, I'm gonna bring it back to the board.
Just want to say, so great to see riparian zones, to see this is where the creek's running through here. It's really an important thing to do. So, once again, thank you, and this is
Yeah.
exciting.
Okay,
We planted about 2,000 to 5,000 trees all along that road, the riparian area, and all the way up to Chris's place.
Wow.
It's been a wonderful time there at that ranch.
great stories, I bet, Tom.
Yeah, a lot of stories. It's been great.
Cool, thank you again. Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to the board for a motion. Francie?
I'll make a motion to approve and accept the deed of conservation easement for the 5R Ranch.
I'll second the motion.
Great, I have a motion, I have a second. Any further comment from the board? I'm just gonna, again, I know we've said it a million times, but you deserve a million thank yous, Tom and Rose.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
So I'll call the
for having
question.
the program.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners authorizing the chair to sign a grant agreement 22 ASE 01, which is the airport, with the Colorado Department of Transportation in the amount of $384,097 for airfield pavement maintenance and airport layout plan update assistance at the Aspen-Picking County Airport Sardi Field. And Mr. Bartholomew, I knew we would be seeing you soon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good afternoon again. Dan Bartholomew, Airport Director. So what this grant is, it's from the Colorado Department of Transportation, and it provides a portion of the local match, up to 5% of all Federal Aviation Administration approved grant projects. So this one covers their match for three different projects. One was some pavement work that we did last August, which on this one is shown as pavement maintenance phase one. And that was in the amount of $92,431. This also covers the maintenance that was done this spring during that 2-week closure, and will also take place, the grooving of the runway taking place this month, actually. There will not be a shutdown associated with that. It'll all be night work. And that one's in the amount of $250,000. And then also the match for the previous item that I brought to you, the airport layout plan, and that's the amount of $41,666 for a total of $384,097. And this covers, as I mentioned, up to 5% of the match to Federal Aviation Administration grants. So with that, I'm asking that you approve the resolution and the acceptance of this grant.
Thank you. Any questions from the board before I open the public hearing? Seeing none at this point, I'll open this to the members of the public. Anyone in the room wishing to speak on this item on our agenda, please raise your hand. When anybody online wishing to speak on this item on our agenda, please hit *9 and it'll raise your hand. Give everybody a few minutes here. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring this back to the board.
I can make a motion that we authorize our chair to sign the grant agreement with the CDOT in the amount of $384,097 for airfield pavement maintenance, airport layout plan update assistance at the Aspen-Pitkin County Airport.
I'll second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Seeing no further questions or comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 So I know that we have Leslie Lamont. She's our ComDev person in-house. So I expect for her to be running through. So Grassroots, we're going to take 5 minutes. We'll give the board a little Welcome back. This is the Board of County Commissioners on Wednesday, August the 10th. This is our regular meeting. We are at the last item, and Leslie, you were only an hour off, so not bad.
That was the same hour off.
We, well, some of it was out of our control. So this is our annual review of our approval of Emma Fields LLC special review. And I want everyone to know that I think all of us have been watching the progress as we drive by. And so we're excited to hear your presentation today. Leslie?
Thank you. So my presentation is going to be fairly short. I want to start with the applicant's representative, Chris Bendon, did submit an affidavit of public noticing. It meets our code requirements. So as you noted, Patty, the project is well underway. Many of the conditions of approval that we would consider as part of an annual review are not appropriate yet. And other than a few hiccups at the very beginning, the applicant and staff, we worked out some things with some neighbors, and those have been resolved. This was publicly noticed. We had no input from anybody on this. And the only thing that I want to just call the board's attention to, and the applicant can elaborate a little bit more on, is the certificate of occupancy for the distillery. And the actual operation of the distillery is anticipated to be up and running in December.
Oh, yeah.
We had a condition of approval in the resolution that said the units, there's 3 dwelling units that will be built on the property. And the condition of approval said that the units had to be completed at the same time that the CO was issued for the distillery. The units are about 6 months behind the timeline of the distillery. So this is a really good opportunity during annual review to talk about this, any amendments to the previous reso, any new conditions that the board would want to put on this project. And staff has recommended that in order to allow the distillery to move forward with a CO in operation starting in December, that we are requesting a financial security for the 3 dwelling units. And we looked at what the employee housing impact fee would be on this project for the square footage of this project. And it's a little over $3 million. So that is what we're requesting as the financial security to change this condition of approval to allow the distillery to keep moving.
So that 6-month gap.
Yes.
So it'd
the
be like
6-month
an
gap.
escrow or?
Yes, or letter of credit.
So I have a question. If in 6 months the housing is not, the dwelling units are not CO'd, what do we do?
Well, theoretically, we would use the letter of credit to finish the units.
Okay.
Also, as I think I pointed out in your memo, 6 months from December is June. May would be the next, May of 2023 would be the next annual review deadline.
So you could be
For this
bringing it back
project.
to us in case there was an issue at that time?
Right.
Okay. Because I know we were trying to tie in the dwelling units on this site with traffic and mitigation issues, so we didn't have traffic coming and going, but it would be my understanding, and you can clarify this for me, Chris, or the applicant, when just starting the distillery up, you probably won't be generating as many employees that first time around, so my concern, and I made extensive notes, and then I just now went, oh my gosh, it's gonna take me a while to gear the distillery up. Hopefully by that time, we'll have the dwelling units sealed and people will be living there. Okay.
I have one more thing I'd like to add. And when we looked at this project, the couple times that we looked at this project, it was all via Zoom. And the applicant, the owner of the property, Matt Patel, Dr. Matt Patel, is here today.
It's nice to meet you. It feels like we're old friends.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
For your time.
Okay, any questions for Leslie? For some reason, I'm seeing a coat hanger for Francie there, the coat rack.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Okay, Steve, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. If the operation of this takes 6 full-time employees, do the 3 housing units, will those house 6 employees? Or are they only gonna house 3 employees and maybe their families or something? That would be one question. Second question is, there could be a 6-month gap between when 6 people are working there and the housing is available. Where are they going to live in the meantime? Presumably during the winter when housing is incredibly short here in the valley because of the winter economy going full bore and people living in their cars and stuff in the winter to try to live here. Is that what the employees are going to do, or what does the owner have planned for that 6-month interim?
Okay, I'll let Chris answer those as part of his presentation. Okay, Kelly?
Yeah, thanks. I just want to understand a little bit. So when this would come back, if we were to make this change about the housing and accept, the escrow or letter of credit, so what we would expect to see next year would either be confirmation that the CO had been issued, or would it be more of a progress report of where, how close to timeline the housing is on meeting the CO deadline? My daughter Bridget is very interested in this issue.
It could be either, Kelly. I mean, hopefully we would be issuing COs for the units in 6 months, and we would be telling you about that during the annual review.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay. I'm gonna let Chris, please.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, and then one other question before Chris dives in. I'd love to understand a little bit more about what the distilling schedule is. It's sort of referenced in the materials, but I'm unclear as to if that's like a 2-month cycle, a 6-month cycle. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Chris Bendon with Bendon Adams here representing the applicant, Emma Fields, who's also going by Aspen Distillers. Matt Patel is here in the flesh. You've been seeing him on Zoom over the last year, and he's come out for this meeting, but also for the project. I'm going to have Matt talk a little bit about where they are just within the construction timeline, and he'll touch on this distilling process to answer Kelly's question. I'll circle back and touch on the annual report and kind of go through what's in your packet. Leslie's correct. Much of it depends on actual operations, so we'll be brief there. And then we do want to talk about the affordable housing requirement and the sort of timing predicament that we are in. So with that, I'd like to have Matt just talk about where they are in the construction process.
Thank you for your time. Just to give everybody an update, from our approval last year, we were committed to getting started right away, and we began demolition literally within a week of getting the approval. Worked on that demolition continuously, and also encompassed within that permit was an earth moving permit as well. So we were able to kind of start to mass grade the site and worked all the way up till the 3rd week of December of last year, at which time winter conditions kind of set in and we halted construction just for worker safety on the site. Once spring hit, we again picked up the earthwork and then kind of waited for the permits to be issued by the county. So initially, from our pre-application meeting, this project was advanced under one permit. The building department asked us to convert that into 8 separate building permits. So each of the 7 structures have their own building permits, and then there's a permit, that's a site-wide permit. So all those went in at the same time, And the 3 residential permits are still pending, so they haven't issued us the permits for the 3 dwelling units yet. So all the other permits have been issued on the site, and we've taken the construction on the dwelling units as far as we can. So, it's been excavated, there's engineered fill, that's where the 3 pads go, and we've framed and are ready to pour the footers, but we can't advance beyond that without getting the building permit. So we had no intent to have any kind of, delay on those units. It's just being held up by our permitting issue. So when we talk about timelines, that timeline constantly changes because we can't start and we don't know, when that permit's going to fall still. So there's not a lack of commitment or any reason other than, that's how the progress has developed. We've tried to fast track the construction as much as we can. So last year, because we're doing, a very dedicated vetting of the materials, we're using all FSC lumber. We had to source that last year. We panelized, all the, the wall panels. So you'll see those if you drive by the site. They're kind of stacked on trailers right now. So next week, you'll see the buildings that are permitted, get erected very quickly. But again, for the economics of this project, we just have a strong interest in turning the equipment on. It's going to take us months of just, kind of figuring out, optimization of the process and everything that it takes that, we can do some work by operating that, before we really try to ramp up the facility. When the question was asked about employees, the concept of having 6 employees out there, that's a 3-4 year time horizon. We wouldn't need that right off the bat. It would be operated by, 1 full-timer, a part-timer. Those employees already exist within the county. So if you go to some bars, you'll see Aspen Vodka, being kind of represented, by, our staff that already live. One actually is able to walk to the facility. The other one, lives off of 82 that would be commuting in and out of the facility, but, already have housing there. So until we kind of expand, we really wouldn't even have use for those cabins. So we don't feel it's going to harm the project and our plan to operate there. But that's, why we have a delay on the dwelling unit. So it's not that it's not committed in the construction package, in our procurement package, it's all there. It's just we can't execute on it.
And can you answer Kelly's questions about distillery timeframes?
Yeah, so once we are able to kind of turn on the equipment, how long that kind of takes us to optimize, the production to meet our formula standards. Could be a matter of weeks, could be longer if we run into any kind of issues. But, we plan on being able to distill out of there by, the end of December.
And do you have an annual cycle, like every 6 months you have a product ready to, or every, when you're gearing up the bottling?
Yeah, with vodka, again, it's kind of a continuous, process. So we'll never inventory a lot of product out there until, later in the years when we start to advance the whiskey program and further things with the project. But it'll be 100% dedicated to just supporting, the vodka brand initially.
Kelly, does that answer your question?
Sort of. I guess I'm trying to understand a little bit better about the fluctuations in the timing of FTEs. How it was presented in the, in the report was 6, all the time, and then 10 plus at certain times. And I guess I'm trying to understand when do you hit that 10 plus?
Probably not till year 3 or 4 on our horizon.
And you up the full-time employees when you're doing bottling or a certain stage of distilling.
Right, and we're considering actually bottling off-site too, depending on.
Because I know that happens across the street at the marijuana grow. There's either 2 cars there or there's 20 cars, and it just depends on the cycle of the plant. So, okay, is that better, Kelly?
Okay. That'll be a question that I'll be curious and.
Okay. Probably no more in May. Francie, I think, and then Steve, I thought, did you have your hand up, Steve? Let's let Francie go
I did.
first.
If you can, I would like to go through the report that we provided, then touch a little bit more on the
Yeah, let me
affordable
just see if
housing.
they have more
Okay.
questions that.
Of course.
Francie, do you have any questions that you want?
Two of my questions can wait until you're done, because you'll
Okay.
probably might cover it, but the other
Yeah.
one is,
Mine
just
can
wanna-
wait till later too.
I just want to understand about this permitting. So I don't understand why you were asked to do, what'd you say, 9 or 10 different
8.
permits instead
It was
of
8.
one overarching permit? And why it's taken a year for permits to be finished and what?
Want me to come on?
Yeah, I do.
Leslie's going, yes.
I can't help with specifics on these permits. I haven't looked at it. But I think well, first, why all the different permits? Each building needs its own permit. Building has to review each permit, each structure as its own, under its own permit. That's just how it works. In terms of timing and how long things have gone, I mean, it sounds like all the permits came in at once. Then, it goes through multiple review entities. There's generally some back and forth between, initial comments from zoning, other referral agencies, where they have to revise drawings, bring them back in. Could go through a second round of that, back and forth. So some of that's time on our end, some of that's time on the applicant's end. I haven't looked at any of that detail for any of this, but presumably that's part of, the time frame why the distillery may have been able to push out sooner, but there may have been different issues with the residential units and what was going on with those permits. And that's all with the backdrop of, I think you're aware, we're pretty inundated.
Yes,
So
I am aware.
that's-
I just didn't realize it was that bad.
And I will add on to that, is that the way the permits are issued, I think your first permit was grading, so you could accept the dirt from Hallam Lake. So, we issue them in tiers, so grading and then other permits, other aspects of the project are being reviewed as it goes along.
So they could start progress without being delayed, so things that
Yes.
could get through, got through.
Right, right.
So the work at Hallam Lake, the scraping of the bottom, some of that dirt went to your project? Cool.
When were you gonna grow there?
That's one of my questions for later, is about the farm aspect of but I can wait till after you're done, Chris.
Okay.
So-
Okay, I'm gonna let Chris proceed.
I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
You certainly can.
It's actually your screen. So we did provide an annual report, and I saw Erin Wackerly was on the call earlier. I don't know if she's still on. She works in our office and put this together, and wanted to just note her involvement because it's a very nice looking report, in my
That's well
opinion.
done.
So that report there's a lot of blanks in it. You'll see those blanks filled in future years. I did want to touch on a few pieces in the report, if I can. I'm going to advance this. Okay, here we go. So you'll see this report filled out more thoroughly in the future, but it has all the categories that we need to respond to. So things that have occurred, obviously the existing buildings have been demolished, and there was a requirement to recover and reuse much of that material. The tin on those large roofs, the majority of that is at a property that I own in Carbondale. We're going to use it on a roof of a hay barn that we're building. The materials you see in the back of this pickup truck are now an outhouse and a property outside of Cedar Ridge. Some of the tin and all of the roof trusses were salvaged. Those are part of a horse facility that's in Newcastle. Anderson Ranch used some of the siding, kind of the old barnwood siding. And really, anyone that had to come to the property to do anything, they're just like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's like, well, do you want some? Because it's, please take it. So there's been various pieces of material from the property scattered about. Reused the railroad ties and some landscape improvements. So that, I think, was successful. And then, again, the remainder of this is going to have more, a more thorough report in the future for your annual review. Hitting back on the affordable housing, what we had originally suggested to Leslie when this came up, when I became aware of it, is that your ultimate stick really in this whole conversation is the special review permit. You have the ability to revoke that or put that in quarantine and withhold Matt's ability to continue to operate in the site. As we just discussed, all the permits went in at the same time. I think one of the pieces of dynamic is that the buildings that are under construction are much more simple, right? So the distillery building, there's a lot of stuff that goes in it, but that comes from off-site. The building itself is just sort of 4 walls and a roof. Same thing with the rick house. So those are easier, quicker to get through the building department. While as the affordable housing just takes more reviews, the more referrals, energy codes, et cetera. Those are going to happen, and we are very, very clear on the obligation. Matt is very clear on that. He's also very, very aware of his kind of ongoing responsibility to operate the project in a way that everyone respects and everyone is proud of, because he has a special use permit from the county that is subject to revocation if he doesn't live up to his obligations. So my dealings with Matt, and I think your experience as well, is that he has a very good say-do ratio, right? He does what he says. We would like to be able to proceed with operation of the distillery while the affordable housing units catch up. The letter of credit or other financial surety puts the project in some risk, but puts it into some harm. Discussing with Matt what that plan B would be, and he would be looking for another equity partner to come in, shave off some of the ownership to be able to put money in to be able to provide that surety. So while it is a pathway, it's not a clean one, and it's not something that Matt is wanting to do. We can operate with 2 people, and as Matt has said, they do have housing now. The operation allows us to then get cash flow, et cetera. One of the challenges in just getting a letter of credit is that the project is pretty well maxed. So you go to a bank and they say, well, we're sort of at our limit. You're proceeding. There's no issue with your proceeding, but you don't have a cash flow. You don't have anything else to leverage. So what's your additional equity? What's your additional assurance that you can bring in there? So that is our ask, and we suggest that you have sort of the ultimate tool to ensure our performance on this.
Okay.
Okay.
Francie?
Yeah, that brought up another question. So what is the square footage of the employee housing? I forget.
Oh, gosh. It's 3,200 or so, I think,
Total?
all in, yeah, for the 3.
A little over that.
And so the estimated building cost for that at this time is $3 million?
No, the way we figured the financial security is based upon the affordable housing impact fee that would be assessed on this commercial type project.
I
And we
see.
based it on the 6 FTEs,
Okay.
because that's what they were
All
approved
right.
for.
So it's not like guaranteed that here's the money to build these if we don't have them. It's totally based on the housing impact fee.
Right.
Of the project.
Yeah.
It seems pretty steep,
That's-
especially for a business trying to.
Well, that's
Make
what
it go
we
big.
did with our increased housing impact fee. But,
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
So-
any other comments or questions?
I
from-
have a couple more.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the farm fields, the 6 acres that were part of the original, what are your thoughts about that at this point, Matt?
It's going to be geared for food production to support, interest in the valley. So, we've been collaborating with ACES on our program to recondition those soils and to turn them back into productive.
Is that where the
lots of
Howland
green.
Lake soils went?
Exactly, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And then, have you located your crops for producing the vodka?
So right now, we've contracted with a single estate farm that's growing our wheat that went into the distiller's release. And we're still, our network with the local ag community is growing, so we hope to just bring that more and more locally based.
Local,
Yeah.
Where's the farm now that you're getting?
It's out by the Denver airport.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So it's fairly local.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
Right.
Greg, gonna go and
Thank
then
you.
Steve.
Just looking at the timeline, you know, you're in a bit of a pickle with the housing and the permitting, I understand that. What's the likelihood that there'll be more delays?
Not on what we have coming out of the ground now. We've been very good. You'll see their Connex containers on site. You know, we understood that we were building this in unprecedented times as far as supply chain issues. So we spent last year when we were in demolition and earthwork making sure that we were ahead of our materials list, especially because our materials were so specialized for the project. And we knew that there would be a period of time that, you know, needed to be baked in just for vetting them as well. So Group 14 is still our sustainability consultant. You know, they're on weekly calls with me, you know, documenting everything that we need for our LEED certification and, you know, living building challenge. So we're on target for all that. And as far as materials go, we have everything we need to, you know, complete it. You know, we just, you know, need to be able to erect it. We need the building permits to do that. So similar, you know, with the panels that you see on site now, which are for the distillery and rickhouse, there's panels that are, you know, in a yard and Grand Junction for the cabins.
You SIP panels?
Right.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask that question.
Just to sort of add on to that, we are asking the board to extend a sort of letter of trust on this. If at any point we are not progressing to what the county is comfortable with, we understand that we are subject to either having a further conversation in front of the board, or you know, ceasing operations or what have you. You know, Matt has made good progress, as you've seen on site. We don't have any indication that wouldn't continue, but if that allows you the sort of comfort to extend that trust, that's certainly something that we can commit to.
And you have a contractor lined up?
It's the same contractor, yeah. So I was telling Chris, it creates a hardship for us not being able to do this simultaneously because they'll have to remobilize, but they understand that, so, yeah.
Okay, Steve and then Kelly.
So since you're not being able to get building permit that you have applied for is not your fault, that the county has to bear some responsibility for that because we are just backlogged in our departments, and I think we should have a process for expediting a project such as this, which part of their building permits are issued and others haven't been issued, where the whole project kind of relies on getting their building permits. So I think the county should bear some responsibility in this. And I've been trying to think of some system perhaps where you can begin limited operations with no more than 2 full-time employees before the housing is completed. And that sounds like what you were kind of anticipating anyhow. That way you could get the distillery operating and working out the kinks in that, which I'm sure there will be lots of kinks to figure out, and, you know, figuring out the processes. And if you could do that with 2 full-time employees and no more, and then you would presumably be able to have the housing for the 3 housing units finished by the time you are ramping up to six or more full-time employees. To me, that might be a possible way that we can move forward on the housing situation.
Well, Steve,
I do have a question about the road, but let's talk about the housing first, and then I'm going to come back with
Yeah,
a
I want to
question
just
about the road.
ask you, as part of that suggestion you just offered, how do you wish to deal with the 3 million plus that we're being asked to put into some kind of escrow account? Would you like to see us waive that until 6 months and then reconsider May
Well,
or
that's what
June?
I was gonna say, if it's such a financial hardship for him to get his credit is at the maximum right now, and getting another $3 million is problematic for the applicant. And that's why I suggest, maybe we limit the maximum number of full-time employees allowed to 2 until the housing is completed. And that, to me, I think could be a compromise that we maybe could accept. So I think we should discuss that and not do the $3 million thing.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna move to Kelly, and then Steve, I know you have more, I'll put you down. I think Kelly wants to comment on that.
Yeah, I have I guess a clarifying question for Chris and Dr. Patel, and then I have a couple questions for Leslie. I think I heard 2 different things. So on one hand, I heard that the housing component is fully budgeted. It's part of your procurement contracts, all of that. You've submitted for it, the permits for it. But on the other hand, you want to get the operation up and running to be generating revenue to cover the completion of that component. What did I get wrong there? Or is it both, or is it one or the other?
The operation is not needed to fund the affordable housing. So that is, the budget for the project and through its full completion is already set. And the bank has provided that loan, and we're proceeding with that. What we don't have the ability to do is further leverage the project to provide additional surety.
Got it. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then I guess my question for Leslie is, do we know that? Do we confirm that is there any documents that you guys review either as part of this or part of the building permit applications that the money is available for the projects that they're requesting permits for? Is one question. Another one is, do we have any preferential permitting for affordable housing in our code or practices at all?
I can answer your first question, but you're going to have to repeat your second question because I was conferring with John Ely on answering your first question. So the first question is, we don't do that. It would be impossible to dig into applicants' financial wherewithal to complete a project. And your second question was?
Do we have any preferential treatment for permitting for affordable housing in either practice and ComDev or the code?
We don't, it's up to the board if the board wants to make a preference.
Yeah. Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you, Kelly, for those questions.
So Kelly, we could say, we want to move him to the head of the queue. Okay, Steve, you had your hand up again. I think you had something about roads or?
Yeah, so I remember the discussions when we were looking at this before approval. There were 2 roads going into the lumberyard site. One immediately after you come off Highway 82, and then the other one farther up Hoagland Ranch Road. And in your booklet, you don't really show the road very well where it comes in relation to the neighborhood. That map there, you can't tell where the Hoagland Ranch, what part of the Hoagland Ranch Road that is. So if there were a bigger neighborhood map, and maybe that could be added into the future annual reports. Now that one that shows before you started the demolition, but could you show me on that one where the road has actually been constructed to go into the site?
Yeah, it sort of splits the 2 openings now. So I would imagine the lower one is probably too close to the intersection, and then the upper one is workable. But you can sort of see it on our site plan here, here's the entryway, the new entryway into the project is a single entryway. So sort of in between the two.
Okay, in the future years, if you could just have a map showing
Sure.
the neighborhood, a little bit higher altitude look, just to show the neighborhood and your relationship to the neighborhood, that would be good.
Yep, can do.
Okay. More questions for the board? More presentation from the presenters or from staff?
I was just going to mention one note. We can, if the county can accept it somehow, we can show you our financial kind of behind the screen. If we can do that in a way that's not a public document, or if you can get a letter from our bank saying that we are fully financed to execute this scope of work. You know, I mean, we're not adverse to providing that. We don't want to provide something that would put Matt in a weird predicament by providing
I
a
see Mr.
public
Ely
document.
going and rubbing his mustache, which means
Okay.
no, I don't think we need that. But we appreciate the offer.
Okay.
For me, we understand the supply chain issues. We understand delays in construction. We understand increased costs of construction. We understand our permitting process. Some things can move quicker, some things that take longer. The fact that everything is taking a little longer than we would like to see, but those are circumstances beyond our control at this time and beyond the applicant's control. You know, we went through this application with a fine-tooth comb more than once. The applicant has come back, I think, and swayed us by good information and good documentation of changes made in response to neighbors and to the commissioner's comments and staff comments. I would like to see us allowing the CO to go through on the distillery operations and giving them a 6-month grace period on housing. And then when they come back in May or June, unless there's something else that comes up, we need to either see those COs coming through on that housing, or we'll talk about what we need to do at that time. Hopefully there'll be some revenues coming in, and John Ely's got his hand raised.
6 months grace period, but you want to wait till May?
Well, no, May is when they're coming back to us again.
So does that mean grace period till May or for 6 months?
When would the 6-month time frame start, Leslie, in your mind? When was it supposed to? It's a good question.
That's a question, and we can kind of work on the language. It's my understanding that they anticipate obtaining their CO in December. So I was just going to June. The annual review report, at least, is due May 26th. I would add that as part of that report, that we have documentation as to how
Progress.
far along the units are, which may even include an inspection on the
Yep,
units.
yep.
That we can then come back to you and say, we've looked at the units, this is how far along they are, they're this close to CO or not. As you know, I get the report from Chris in May, we schedule our time with you, and here we are in August.
Yeah.
So,
Francie will be scheduling meetings then, so.
yes, no, I looked at Greg, I should look at Francie. So there's a lot of play in that, but I think maybe we should also add language in here that if we're not even close on May 26th, that staff can come immediately to the board and say, this special review is in violation of their conditions, and we're gonna
see
stop
what happens.
production.
Well, what
Yeah.
if we gave 6 months from the time they get their building permits?
No.
Or May 26th, one or the other, but 6 months from now doesn't seem to make.
It'll be 6 months from December when they get their seal for the distillery, so I'm
Well,
saying June.
I assume that the minute building permits are issued, you're gonna start
rock and roll,
work.
Right.
yeah.
They're ready to
So
roll.
you could get your permits in November, but you're just anticipating that.
What I'm saying is I can't promise a date until I know when that permit comes in, because if it comes in January, I might not be able to start till March, you know, but obviously, we're ready to go. The footer's, formed and waiting, for a permit. So if we start now, that it's a different timeline. It's just an unknown.
And the framework for the building is sitting in a place in Grand Junction, which would rather be sitting on a place at Holland Hills.
So if we allowed the reprieve until the next annual report, that seems to fit the timeline in all.
Because we may be done with it, and it may be a moot point, right?
Fingers crossed.
So I would just want to add that as part of that annual report, we want specific documentation as to the status
Well, that
of
would
the
be-
units, which may include a site visit or an inspection.
Or
That's what-
perhaps even check-ins before then. Just some accountability in the next 9 months that something, I don't know exactly how to structure that, but some kind of, this is where we are, some photographs, some stuff from the contractor, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we can have Leslie, Chris will keep her in tune so that if there's a glitch and something is, we can see something coming. And in that case, Leslie has the opportunity to bring it back to the board.
And we'll have inspections along the way. We'll have a footer inspection, we'll have framing inspections, we'll have evidence of progress.
Kelly, I see your hand up. I think Suzanne has something to add to us.
I'll just jump in quick, since Alex happens to be in the back of the room. He's much handier at SAGES than I am. So he says, it looks like those permits are pretty close to issuance. It looked to me like, we were just waiting on the final PV permit, and everything else, once that's gone, then the hold is out and they're issued. So, what does that mean? Is that in the next month? But, I think that's the kind of time frame maybe we're looking at, that everything else has gone through. So, again,
So heads up,
hopefully
gear up.
they're hopefully starting work sooner rather than not until, looking at
Good.
January.
Thanks,
obviously.
Alex. Okay, I'm going to bring it to Kelly now. She's been patient with us.
Okay. No, that was really helpful. I wanted to know that. And just a reminder, I guess of what the consequence was in the resolution before us. If they don't do that, it's to cease operations, right? Until they get the CO for housing.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm supportive of that. I think it's fine, the 6-month grace period with those consequences, should that not be met at that time.
It's not 6 months though, right? We're talking until next May.
Your annual review.
Their annual review.
Yeah.
We're talking, technically, they won't
6
get their
months from
CO
the-
in December. It's not 6 months from today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 months from when the CO for the distillery is issued. That's what I understand the timing we're operating under.
Yeah. Okay.
And waiving the $3 million credit thing.
Yes. Leslie, is this a public hearing? Suzanne
Yes.
says yes.
Yes.
This is a public hearing.
I was going to ask a question, but I
You
can
can
wait
go
till
ahead and
after.
I can open the public hearing later.
Just want to know, we're it seems as if we're not going to go the direction of a $3 million guarantee, what sort of completion guarantees do we have?
We pulled his permit for the distillery.
And that's it? So
Yeah,
if everything goes south, we don't have a completion guarantee for the housing.
If the project goes south because we're not able to perform on the construction, then the project is sort of dead in the water. There's no completion guarantee for the distillery or for the affordable housing at that point. That's obviously not in anyone's wish list, but that is a consequence. But certainly if we are not performing to your expectations, if we're not making adequate progress to the county's expectation, you have the ability to require that we cease operation until we can perform.
Right, got it.
Okay, Kelly, you still have your hand up. Did you have more questions?
I didn't, I forgot, but I would just add, in that event, and should the property be sold, I would assume that our conditions would just follow any sale.
I'm having more fun watching to figure out what the
Yes.
kids are doing on the bed, but they're playing with Play-Doh on the bed.
They're driving me crazy.
Okay.
They're so darling.
I'm going to bring it back here to the board. I'm going to open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this item on our agenda? Are there any members of the public online wishing to comment on this item? If so, please raise your hand. Aaron, Aaron's the one who put together this. Aaron, this attachment B of the annual report was beautifully done. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'm going to close the public hearing. Francie?
I don't know what kind of motion we would make here. Would we motion to, would we move to grant the annual review approval with the changes that we've discussed?
Exactly.
Okay, I move so.
Good job. I have a motion and I have a
I'll second it.
second. Do I have any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none.
I'll just wish you success, Dr. Patel. I look forward to sampling.
Thank you.
Let's get it done.
I want to see the buildings, that's my.
I know.
thread
Leslie,
about the
please, I want to
buildings.
see the gardens.
I just want to, oh, go ahead, Steve.
Steve, go
One
ahead.
last comment. I am really looking forward to seeing what the farming operation there.
Yeah.
I know originally you were talking about trying to grow your grain there, which of course that would last for, half a day's worth of grain or something you maybe could produce on the site. But I really like your doing the project in cooperation with ACES and maybe growing some vegetables or some alternative crops of some kind on that land. And the Kester Ditch water right is a very good water right in the Roaring Fork River. So once you get get your irrigation system set up, you have a really good source of water for the farming operation.
Definitely an improvement over to the last condition that property was in, that's for sure. Okay, bringing it back to the board then. Leslie, you had one more.
I just want to make sure the board is comfortable with us kind of taking the discussion and amending the resolution as we discussed.
I think we're
and
fine.
then
And
having
if
the
you have
chair-
any questions, or you can either come to me, or we can bring it back in a work session.
Right. But we can make those changes for your signature without coming
And I will
back to the
check them
board.
out carefully before I sign it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I have a motion, I have a second, I have no further comment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
We appreciate
you.
it.
Glad it worked out for you.
Okay, board, we are going to open discussion. I'm going to jump in really quickly here, just to clarify one thing before I have Alex come up. Kelly, you brought forward a concern about all the board members being present for the APSHA discussion. Greg was going to try his best from the shores of a beach in Chile or someplace, I don't know where he's planning to be, but to err on the side of caution, we are going to ask APSHA to delay again, and with our apologies, but saying that we want to make sure all 5 board members are present because this is an important discussion.
Especially you.
Damn right.
So we are good on that, and now I'm going to have Alex come up.
I wasn't gonna let you off.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Alex come up, and he's just gonna give us a really brief explanation of where we are with the Growth Management Citizens Committee Group and what the plan is for next week.
Yay, thank you for doing that, Alex.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So Alex Sanchez, analyst in the Community Development Office. So I understand yesterday in the meeting there were some questions regarding the August 18th kickoff meeting that we're having with the Community Growth Advisory Committee. And so I kind of want to talk through what's going to happen there. I know currently both Kara and Cindy are out this week, and so next week when they do come back, I think there were some concerns raised in the meeting yesterday that we will internally discuss and find a way to make sure we capture that feedback. So in the kickoff meeting, it's going to be a very high-level meeting. We're going to talk about vision, structure, overview of process, a lot of the information that this board already has in the P&Z as well, but to the Growth Committee for the first time. There will also be a question and answer session where we'll be able to discuss their concerns or any other information they might want to talk about. Now, Francie, what I heard you ask is kind of about the guardrails or how we're going to limit what this committee is working on. And if you'll remember in some of the prior meetings, we did come before this group and the P&Z in that we worked on the vision statement, and it was reworded to place climate action at the initial start. And so that was kind of where we were going with the first set of guardrails. We had also in prior retreats and meetings talked about looking at items such as house size, residential redevelopment, GMQS, TDRs, and environmental constraints such as rockfall, water, and fire. And so all of these are in the initial items that we'll share with this committee. All of that couched under the 3 goals that we've heard this board share: reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions by 90% by 2050, the residential net zero by 2030, and then creating a healthy level of economic vitality. So those are the initial guardrails that we're going to relay over to this growth committee. And for that kickoff meeting, that's really as in-depth as we're going to get. We're not touching on any of the data or study that we have. Now, what I think when Cindy and Kara and the rest of the team are able to regroup next week is we'll find a way that we're able to either, one, come to you in a work session or individually reach out and get some of the constraints or items that I believe you guys have importance on and would like to see this committee address, because I know that's still something that's missing. And so for the kickoff meeting, I want to assure everybody that conversation doesn't have to happen by August 18th. We still have plenty of time in the following sessions where we will be able to take care of that and hear some of those concerns to eventually relay them to the committee. So.
Yes, Nancy.
Yeah, so I looked at the website that you have for the committee and the links that you had in your letter to those members. Lydia sent it to me. And I was wondering if all the board has links to that, because it was really cool to look at that. It really gave me an idea of what's going on and what's expected of them and what information they have. So if you could somehow share that with everybody, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, we could definitely send out the link to the new growth management page or growth management committee page we've set up. It also links back to some of the prior work we've done in studies. And then as we produce new material, information studies, it'll be posted there. So I'll be sure everybody here in this room has access to that.
That'd be great. Thank you so much, Alex.
And I have a question. This is kind of just because we have this meeting set up with Cindy and Kara. Is it we gonna have it, because I'll come in to the office, so we'll just get a room?
Yes, I think I reserved a room for you guys as well.
Okay, just wanted to let you know. Thank you for sending that invite on to me. And it's okay with Jeffrey?
Yes, he accepted too.
Perfect, perfect. So we're trying to plan ahead while Cindy's in Alabama and Kara's camping in Montana or something.
Yeah.
And it's 4 to 6 on the 18th?
4 to 6, August 18th, yes, and thank you for bringing that up. At the Door Hosier, which is at the Aspen Institute. It's on the basement level, Aspen Meadows. It's in the basement level of the Door Hosier. We'll have signs once you get to the area to help direct everybody. And there is a virtual option for anybody in the committee or members of the public who would like to still attend virtually.
Will there be enough room in that room?
We believe so. We're working with the Aspen Meadows right now to best configuration to accommodate everyone.
That big room downstairs doesn't seem big enough, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So when we pull in, we go to that first building, it's in that?
When you pull in, you park in the parking garage underneath the tent by the tennis courts.
Oh, in the parking garage, okay.
And then you walk down the road past the Meadows Restaurant and sign in, and it's the first big building down the hill on your right.
Okay, great, thanks.
By the snake, the serpent.
I will get off the bus and get on a WeCycle and ride on a bicycle there.
With your hand held up over your heart.
Yeah.
All right. John Peacock, he's not on with us?
No.
Rich Peacock, Ely, John.
The two that we were going to cover, just a couple of, I guess we're done with Alex. We're good now?
Yes, Alex, we're good. Thank you.
Thank
Good,
you.
Thank you.
Unless
Thanks so much,
anybody has
Alex.
more questions for Alex. Thanks for being in the room too earlier. Okay, we're good.
One more quick one for Alex. Only that the last item of your list of the 3 or 4 you described was a healthy level of economic activity. That's vague enough that it'll be good. It'll be a good conversation starter. I'm just wondering if if there's any need to drill down, or I guess if we're looking at, there wasn't a date set. We don't have a 2050 deadline. We don't have a 2030 deadline. So we kind of need to define what that means. And I'll be really interested in hearing what comes out of that.
Yeah, and I think the great thing there is we have consultants, economic planning system out of Denver who have been conducting an economic analysis right now of the Roaring Fork Valley. And so we've got some great experts there that can really come and help answer some of the questions that the committee might come up with in regards to a healthy level of economic vitality.
Got it.
We know Honduras.
Steve, did you have a question for Alex or just an open
Yeah,
discussion?
yes, for Alex. When we do the community check-ins or whatever, the two different times during the process, when we will get to, I guess, hear a report, interim report for what progress they have made or what things they're coming up with, is that what is anticipated? And would that be an opportunity for the BOCC to weigh in on the process again if we don't think they are headed in the direction that we are happy with, or they're not going fast enough, or we think they should go in, look at some other things? Would that be an opportunity at these future meetings to bring that up?
Yes, correct. We had heard in the planning of this that BOCC had a desire for this group to routinely check back with them, not to just get an update at the end of the process. And so that's exactly what we had envisioned there, an opportunity to update you of where the direction is and for you guys to be able to help direct that if it's not going in the direction you're envisioning.
And that is a fluid process. If they decide 2 weeks into the process, they need to come to us, or 2 months. We're going to keep that door open. Okay, any other questions for Alex? Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
We're so
Rich?
proud of Alex. You know, he was the best and brightest out of our office, and he's just doing such a
I
great
know.
job.
Still is.
He still is. He is still the best
We're
and
keeping
brightest.
him
We
best
love
and
the best and brightest.
He's
He just
recovering.
keeps getting better and brighter all the time.
He is.
We scored big with the best and brightest.
Yes.
I
yeah,
need, I need dark glasses, man.
Just a couple of other follow-ups, Patty, if you don't mind. The RFPs, Ashley did send out to the board the RFP for the DEI, just for your
Yeah, we saw it.
look-see. I don't know if you guys want the FBO one or not.
No, I don't want 300 pages.
Okay, I didn't think
If
you
anybody
did.
else wants to read them,
No thanks.
Okay.
I trust
all right.
you.
Good enough.
they had a long day at the office that day.
Yes, and then,
I would like to see it.
okay, Kelly, we will send you one with instructions that if anybody contacts you, send them directly to procurement.
Kelly, you're more than welcome to stay at home with your 2 kids and read the RFP for the FBO.
Yeah, actually, it'd be good
Just
to
as
see.
long as we don't get hosed.
Good to see if you think we're going to see the money whenever you see that, Kelly. And then the AAB position, we did put it back out, the Airport Advisory
Airport
Board,
Advisory
I'm sorry.
To the 26th, right?
26, yep. And Greg, there is a link if you said
Yep,
there were a couple
found
of
it,
people
found it,
interested,
already
so-
forwarded it, yeah.
Okay, all right. I
See
think
what
those were
happens.
the only follow-ups.
Greg, what would you do without that Milk Duds box?
I know, it's kind of, makes a nice little prop.
All right,
That's
Rich,
all I've
anything
got,
else?
Patty, thank you.
Any other open discussion from the board? John Ely?
Nice to have you here, John.
And we do have, John, I need your assistance on scheduling that exec session with Healthy Rivers and Streams for next Tuesday. But I'll talk to you tomorrow about that. Okay, just so we get it on the agenda correctly with the 15-minute start time. Okay, so looking at the board, I'm very happily going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any other questions or concerns from the board? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Grassroots. We are off now. You can shut us off.